another round of budget development meetings. Connie, if you could please call the roll.
Bates.
Here.
Mangum. Here. Nichols.
Here.
Paulson.
Here.
Satterfield.
Here.
Swanson.
Here.
Dahlquist.
Here. All right, we'll move right into the agenda item 2. It's Public Works Department. Tom Kirkman, our Public Works Director, and department representatives will be here to give their presentations for the 27 budget. Good morning.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Tom Kirkman, Public Works. I've asked Rich from Finance to come up and join me. I just wanted to take a minute and acknowledge Rich and his staff. I think this process is going super smooth with implementing OpenGov and all that. So I just think they deserve a lot of credit for that. Both Rich and all of his staff there in Pocatello have been great.
They've
along
been
with
great.
all the finance staff. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Wanted to throw a plug out for them. We're gonna try and cook through these pretty quick because we've got 10 different budgets we're gonna cover in Public Works. I don't want to wear you out with a bunch of stuff. The first thing we're gonna talk about is the Public Works Department. So this department is kind of the umbrella over all the separate Public Works departments. You know, we try and ensure that all the infrastructure is maintained. But the biggest thing is we try and plan, fund, and preserve for the future all of our infrastructure. We have great department heads. You're gonna hear from all those today. We're very lucky to have who we have. They're very talented, all of them. And they all run a pretty tight ship. So you're gonna see that today. Public Works, we try and have a holistic approach to all the departments. We're not fans of siloing. We like to have everybody pulling the rope in the same direction. You can see our org chart. We've got all the departments underneath. And then we made a little bit of changes. We've moved all of our environmental compliance and outreach into our Public Works account or our fund. These are really critical functions we do. We have a lot of permits in the community that we have to maintain, our stormwater permit, water permits, all. We have groundwater sampling permits with sanitation. We have air quality issues or not issues, but permits with WPC. And so this compliance as well as education and outreach are key parts of making this process work. That's one thing that we really want to start working towards is improving our outreach and our community input. So some of the goals we want to work for coming up is we want to invest in some innovative technologies so that we can make data-driven decisions. That's one thing that's super nice about Public Works is we're all a bunch of geeks and we like data. We track everything so that we can make smart decisions for the public's health and safety. We want to do some long-term planning and proactive asset management. We feel like we do a really good job of that. We have capital improvement plans for departments of how we're going to move forward. And then we really want to work towards some sustainable practices. And you'll hear a lot about that with our sanitation department as well as water, WPC, and all the departments. Like I said before, we want to expand our outreach and get more engaged with the community, increase our transparency. And then a big part of this is some environmental stewardship. We think that's key to the life of the community. So you'll see on the revenues and expenditures, there was a pretty big bump. That was when we moved in those two other positions and their budget into this budget. So that explains the large jump there. We've kept everything flat from what it was with the two budgets before that are combined now. So you can see down below in our revenues and expenses. If you have any questions on any of those, feel free to ask.
Mayor,
And that's about it.
Yes,
I've
sure.
got some questions, Tom. If you could, just a little more detail, because this budget especially has some big changes from last year to this year. So like the revenue difference in the administrative support Public Works Director from 323,000 to $1,040,000. Can you just kind of explain what the change is there?
Yeah, so the old science and environment was about a $700,000 budget. And so we basically just brought that amount over into the Public Works budget. We're gonna evaluate that. It's our first year, so we're gonna evaluate what those needs are, if that needs to be more, if it needs to be less, but we're gonna be working towards that. So that's the big shift that we see there.
Yeah, good, another question.
What's the FTE that this line supports?
So we have the executive assistant, the environmental compliance specialist, and the education and outreach coordinator. So basically 4 FTEs, and no vacancies.
And this is, let's see. So the revenues are coming from,
So the revenues are coming from all of the departments in Public Works. That's one thing that we've adjusted this year. Water and WPC, we're paying the lion's share of these. We've more equitably spread that out to street sanitation, engineering, GIS, fleet, to make that, it's the same amount of transfer, we just distributed it more evenly across all the departments instead of being very water heavy and WPC heavy.
so you basically absorbed budgets from other departments that were previously not part of this Public Works
Correct,
budget, and that's how you get to the $1,040,000?
correct.
Okay,
Which would
thanks.
be the science and environmental
Yep.
division
I
taking
got
that
you.
on.
Okay, thank you.
Question, Mayor.
Yes,
On that, so the science and environment, didn't some of the other departments kind of take on some of those roles as well? Did they get some of that budget?
Yeah, science and environment had, they did some grant work. We did shift the grant work to our grants division, which is technically where it should have been. That's something in the future that we'll need to talk about, because some of the river visioning was coming out of the science and environment, and we think that would be appropriate to move some of that into the river visioning part of it.
Okay,
That's kind of a decision for you folks.
okay.
yes.
On the note of River Vision, I've had some concerns from folks about what's happened with that program and how it's going to be funded and administered going forward. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the River Vision's alive and well. We've moved it into planning. We feel that it's a planning function, and that's a good place for it to sit. The tough part with the river visioning before is the Science and Environment Division was 90% of their funding came from the Water Department and WPC. There was also some money that came from our co-permittees with our stormwater permit. So we have a MS4 stormwater permit in the whole municipal area. And so ISU, the state, Chubbuck, and Bannock County are all in that permit. And so they pay us a small amount of money to manage this permit for them. So when the river visioning was, we were talking about that, we weren't sure if that was appropriate for water and wastewater to be covering that totally, the river visioning. We feel like that should be more spread out, more transparent amongst all the departments that are affected by that.
Okay, so is there a person in charge of the River Vision?
Becky Babb with planning.
Becky is.
Yeah, and she's doing a great job with it. It's still moving forward, just like it was before.
Okay.
But unlike what we had before, though, Becky has other duties as well. I mean, with planning, so she's not exclusively, unlike Hannah, that she was full-time with that, if I understand correctly. So although it moved over, there's not like an FTE of 1.0, the way I understand that.
Yeah. The part too that we tried to correct was a big part of science and environment was permit compliance. And so we feel that that's very important as well. So that's why we've tried to split that up more logically so that we're also doing all of our permit requirements as well as the river vision.
Yeah, because just in the way I understand it, didn't, like in regard to the stormwater permit, being in adherence to that, isn't, Hannah used to do a lot of that, and now that's Melissa in the,
Yep.
So it didn't, everything that Hannah didn't fully shift to Becky,
Correct.
the way
Yeah,
I
yeah.
understand.
The river visioning part shifted to Becky. So we've focused more on our compliance to our environmental standards and our permitting, the stuff that the responsibilities we have with the EPA, the DEQ, to get those accomplished. One of the arguably the most important part of preserving our river is erosion and sediment control. And that's, so like when you have a subdivision and the developer comes and clear cuts that, and then we get a big rainstorm and that runs in, it goes right down the storm drains and right into the river. That's something that we've put more focus on. That was some stuff that was kind of slipping through the cracks that we feel is super important. And that's something in our stormwater permit that we're required to do. And so we're just trying to divide and conquer that stuff up a little bit more equitably.
Is there one person then that's over the permit compliance now?
Yes, that's Melissa.
Melissa?
And
Okay,
that's
and is
the,
she is she under Public Works?
Yes.
So I just want to make sure it's clear. From my understanding, so the environmental compliance specialist, that's pretty much doing the stormwater permitting, all of the permits, right? That part of Hannah's job, that's what that position is doing.
Correct.
The education and outreach coordinator, can you kind of, what's that position?
So there is, in all of the permits, there's criteria about outreach. There's outreach that has to be done in these permits. And that's the stuff that we need to take very serious. You know, when we look through these permits, we look at the shoulds and the shalls and the musts and the mays. So compliance is a must and outreach is a must. And those are things that we have to do as part of our permit requirements. But what we're doing also with this is we're expanding this outreach to serve all of the public works departments. This person helped with Water Week we had at the water department. We do the river cleanup. We do the environmental fairs, part of the outreach. The Pocatello and other outreach. So this outreach person organizes events, and then also, like right now, we're looking at all of the operators in the city have to get a stormwater operator's permit. I can't remember what the name of it is, but it's a class that teaches our folks how to properly put in stormwater BMPs. So if we're doing work, we make sure that dirt and sediment and whatever's not going in the storm drains. We also have those classes with contractors. We want them to be certified in that as well, and this outreach person teaches those classes.
And so the salary increase, those two positions are the difference in the salaries from 26?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's a work in progress. We're working through it and trying to get it organized. Anything else?
I'd say go ahead and continue on.
Okay, we're gonna jump into engineering. It's a little out of order, but I'm here, so.
Hold on, your sidecar gotta catch up.
Yeah. So, engineering, is a department that assists pretty much every department in the city. They give technical support to all departments. Our engineering department is very, very, key to our planning and building, for subdivisions, for construction activities. We also do surveying work. Every time there's a subdivision and we have to do a plat, our surveyors are involved in that. Our surveyor is involved in that. And we also have project manager, so you can see in our, in this org chart, we have our GIS department as well, that you'll hear from here next. So we have project manager, and then we have techs. We have 3 techs. And those positions are the ones that review plans. They go out and do inspections during subdivision or building operations. And then we have 2 engineers that are slated for this department. One of them is the Deputy Public Works Director, City Engineer, which we're actively trying to fill that position. And then we have a project engineer that's been vacant for quite some time. the consulting world right now for engineers is very lucrative. So it's becoming problematic to try and attract engineers right now. So this project engineer position has been vacant for quite some time. We do feel like it is a very important position to have because we need engineer sign-offs on a lot of the stuff that goes on. And that can be difficult if we are only counting on one person to do that. So some of the goals we're gonna shoot for the next year, we're gonna try and improve our coordination, communication.
And Councilman Bates, did you
Oh,
have a?
sorry, yeah. So Tom, because there's just been a lot of changes around these positions and have we had applicants for the city engineer? Where are we at in that hiring process?
Yeah, so we've got, we did interviews a week or two ago. We're looking at one candidate right now. We did make an offer to one that turned it down. But we're looking at another candidate right now.
And I guess, would you, in your opinion, I guess, is wages the biggest, is that our biggest challenge with filling this position?
I don't know. I think so. If I had to guess, probably.
Okay, and then I was also just wondering, is this position going to be paid with a mix of general fund and enterprise funds? Because I know that was a concern previously. Like, how are we going to handle kind of that division of labor and the money that goes along with it?
Yeah, so the engineering department is got general fund contributions as well as enterprise. That's where the admin transfer comes in. Some of that money that you see from all the other departments, that gets put into the equation for the general fund, or for engineering. Majority of it is general fund, but the utilities also contribute in the enterprise funds.
Mayor,
Yes.
to answer a question, Councilmember Bates, I've had engineers come to me and say, man, I'd love to work for the city, but that pay just isn't good enough for me. And they can make more money privately than they can working for the city.
That's the tough part. I mean, I imagine that we could say that about just about every position in the city as well. And so we understand that that's a difficult situation that you folks are in. And so we're just trying to work through that.
Yeah, and one thing we've talked about, that has been a tough position to fill, like getting a headhunter. Right now, the Human Resources does a nice job with that outreach. But I'm not sure the candidate that we want is out there actively seeking a job. And so we've talked a little bit about this, just a different recruiting method and a headhunter kind of thing. We've got to figure out something, and we do have some leeway in the salary, in that we can go above, like, the typical, like, step one, we could go to 3 or 4 or whatever. We know that there needs to be lots of leeway there, but we've tried, just, it's been posted forever, and I know we're overdue, and we need to regroup and get like a specific recruiter for an engineer, I feel like is the next step needed.
And give a big thanks to water and wastewater, because they have 2 engineers they have an engineer each on staff, and they've been helping tremendously at the engineering department to help us get it through, because it's been a tough run.
Yeah, right now, Levi Adams is coming over daily, spending a big portion of the day over here at City Hall, managing a lot of these folks. And that, just the leadership aspect that we started a couple of weeks ago, I think that's been a good move to just get them, just consistency with supervision. But we really do, I definitely understand the need to get that filled, and we have to change our approach for sure.
So I have one other question. I'm wondering about, Tom, because there was concern previously, and I think I share that concern about ensuring that there's coordination between our city engineer and engineering in general and planning as well, because planning uses engineering, there's a lot of working hand in hand there. This position is going to be Deputy Public Works Director and City Engineer. I guess, how are we going to ensure that there's good collaboration between engineering and planning once we fill this position?
Yeah, so some of the big problems we had before is we had competing priorities in engineering. The water and wastewater engineers were in the engineering department. And so there was times when engineering was working on all utility projects or all development projects or this. And so we've tried to make that a little more organized. And so this new engineering approach that we're going for is going to be very development heavy. We're working pretty good, I think, with planning about getting a plan put together of how we're going to streamline this process, because there is some issues with it. We've had some hiccups along the way of sometimes we do a plat one way and sometimes we don't, and we're trying to streamline that process. I know that's a goal of everybody on the council, is to improve housing and get development. And so that's pretty much, these two engineers are going to be very development heavy driven.
Thank you.
Looks like we're good for now.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Nico Martinez, our GIS coordinator, is going to come up.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Nico Martinez, GIS coordinator. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about our GIS division.
Got it.
So we provide the essential maps, geographic data, spatial analysis, and systems that support a wide variety of city departments. I think we support over 75% of city departments in one way or another. And these systems, this data helps streamline our operations. It promotes transparency, and a big thing, especially with public works, is we support data-driven decision-making. We have these really powerful asset management systems, GIS systems, that track all this data for us, that puts the key information in the hands of everyone who's making decisions at the city. Makes it easy for city staff to find utilities, to figure out what projects they need to work on, how to better plan their maintenance, things like that. And so a big part, Rich, if you could scroll up a little bit.
Sorry.
I kind of want to talk about what we do. And I want to break this into 3 different parts. I think the big thing I want you to understand is that GIS is more than maps. We make maps, and we make some really great maps, but we also do all this other work in the back end to support those maps and support our departments. We have the geographic part, which is the maps. We go out in the field, we collect data, we create kind of complex visualizations, and then we get to do some spatial analysis as well, which is where we start to ask questions of our data. Where in the city is at most risk for wildfire, or where are our highest risk areas for maintenance that we need to prioritize? Then we have the information part of it, and that's sort of the backbone of our system. That's the maps are really pretty and look great because we have all this information behind them. Say for our utilities, we don't just want to know where a sewer pipe is. We want to know how big it is, what the material is, when it was installed, what direction it flows. And so we design the databases and combine all these different sources of data together to build a really robust ecosystem in the back end, so that all of our users can just click a couple buttons and see the information they need. Finally, we've got the systems part, which is really what ties all this together. We do a lot of work to put the maps, information in places that are easily accessible. We create interactive web applications, manage software integrations so that GIS really touches all parts of the city, anything from public works, asset management, to service requests for see-click fix, and a lot more in between. So going on to kind of why this matters. Maps are a lot easier to understand than spreadsheets. And so it's one thing to just have a list of data or a list of locations, but we really do the work to put all this information together, make it easy for people to use, to work with, to make decisions on. And what this ends up doing for us, it reduces the administrative burden on a lot of our departments. City employees can actually spend more time working on the things that matter and less time searching for information, filing paperwork, things like that. This also helps our residents. And so we have some public web maps that are available on the city's website, which contain all kinds of data, anything from zoning to land use, trailheads, aerial imagery, you name it, it's on there. And we provide that for free to the public. Pretty much the only thing we don't share is our utilities. That's just a security issue, but anything that we can share with the public, we're very open about that. We also do a lot of other work. We make maps that go onto social media. We help with track asset management, and we even map addresses, which we've mapped over 1,000 this past year as all the new development has come in. So see a few examples of our maps here. And we'll go ahead and move on and talk a little bit about our organization. So GIS is a very small division. We have 2 full-time employees, myself as GIS coordinator and our GIS analyst. We're under the engineering and public works umbrellas, so we answer to that deputy public works director, city engineer position, and then the public works director as well. Typically, as a small division, we both kind of handle all parts of the GIS system. But if we had to make a division, as a coordinator, I typically focus more on managing the GIS systems, while our analyst focuses a lot more on maps, collecting field data, and doing spatial analysis. So, if you can go on. Wanted to share a few numbers, kind of break down really the scope of what we do, which is we have a very wide scope. We touch on a lot of departments and users within the city. So the first thing is just how much data we have. We have a really robust data system. We have millions of records across our GIS and asset management systems. Anything you can think of, from sewer lines to work orders to addresses to zoning. We have robust data sets behind all of this. And these, hold on, Rich.
Sorry.
These data sets get a lot of views. We have around 50,000 internal views just on our utility maps, 10,000 public views on those maps. And so they're kind of a daily resource for our departments. You can see we've got over 300 registered users just within the city ecosystem, and over 100 of those log in every day. So it's this really powerful system that a lot of departments use. We've got a bunch of exciting projects too, everything from asset management system upgrades to improvements to our public maps. We revised a lot of our maps this past year to add more data to them, make them more accessible, easier to use for the public. We've also got some good ongoing projects. We're working with the fire department right now to develop some evacuation zones across the city, making sure that ahead of fire season, the people can get out of their homes safely and easily. We're also working on our server migration, which is something that we purchased a new server as part of the FY26 budget, and so we're currently in the process of transferring all of our maps and applications over. Then some goals for next year. So, of course, increase our public outreach. We do a really good job with our public maps, but we have this robust catalog of data, and so we want to share that with all of our citizens. We want to do some outreach, get these tools into the hands of our residents so they can use them even more than they do. We've also got some systems improvements, data security audit, software upgrades, which will really help us just keep things running smoothly, efficiently, and securely. As well, the other project I want to highlight, we'll be working with planning to do kind of a property market value analysis later this year, and that'll allow us to better visualize the tax base in Pocatello, visualize where development's coming in, and sort of give you an understanding of the best, the most valuable areas of the city. So we'll move on to some of our expenses. So our budget's the exact same as last year, no changes, no new positions, anything like that. And you can see here some of our salaries, or some of our expenses in detail. Our biggest expense is salaries for the two of us. We have some other high expenses, which is just software licensing for these GIS asset management platforms, and then a little bit of consulting as well. That's all I have. Thank you.
Yes.
Just real quick, Nico, I'm wondering, what is, between the two of you, kind of workload looking like, and do you foresee any need for additional staff in, I don't know, maybe the next 5 years?
Yes, absolutely. So right now, we have a very heavy workload. We're typically running right at the maximum limit of what we can do with 2 staff. And so we're pretty efficient with that. But for comparison, we've talked with other similarly sized cities who have 4 times the amount of staff we do for this responsibility. So in the next 5 years, we're definitely looking for more staff. I think we would target first some additional analysts just to help us with a lot of our data workloads that are pretty time intensive. And then as we expand, potentially target even more positions helping to better manage the systems, improve maps for all the departments, things like that.
I think we're very fortunate. Both Nico and Allison are very talented at what they do, and they have such great ideas. I mean, we're just scratching the surface on what they're capable of doing. And so down the road, this is something that we need to really invest in and make it grow. I know for Public Works, all the Public Works departments use these systems every day. It's pretty vital to what we do. So.
I would just say, we shouldn't have favorites, but Nico, you're like one of the greatest guys I know. Like,
Thank
I'm so
you.
glad that you work for the city, so thank you.
Yeah, and Nico, not to get in the weeds too much, but I had no idea like addressing a property had so many long, complicated steps.
Yeah.
Are we in a good spot with addressing and that whole process now?
We're in a pretty good spot with it. I think we're, especially as we get that Deputy Public Works Director City Engineer position filled, we're going to work with engineering more closely to fix some of the things on their side, especially like how addresses get assigned, how the numbers actually get created, things like that. But we've improved it a lot over the past year. We've tried to standardize it so that it's pretty efficient. We assign the numbers, send out the letters, and make sure that we comply with all the regulations to get it into our systems.
Yeah.
So
So are you the main coordinator of that right now? Does that
Yes.
fall upon you?
yes, currently GIS is handling pretty much all the addressing for the city. Eventually, with engineering, we'll spread out that responsibility a little bit more, but we will have some duties, more than half of it, that we always handle, which it's the input into our GIS systems and the permitting part of it.
Yeah, it was engineering and GIS. We're very partnered on this, and Nico and Allison have really stepped up and filled that void.
There was just a lot of back and forth with it before, from what I recall. So just having a coordinator or whatever now, and like I say, just assigning an address sounds like a simple thing, but I found out it's not.
Yeah, it's,
Especially on a multi-unit place, that's,
yeah. People see their address and they just see the number that that they use for their house, but behind that is this whole system of different regulations and standards to make sure that people can get their packages delivered on time, that 911 can get to houses in an emergency, and that people can get their permits pulled efficiently.
Okay, I had a question here.
Yeah, so I understand that your department really is sort of, it can face unlimited demands with limited resources.
Yes.
Right? There's almost nothing you can't map.
Yes.
Right? So given that you've got 2 people, is there anything that would make your and Allison's life easier that isn't another FTE?
So I would say we're starting to work with a lot of the other departments. We're doing a lot of training right now to bring sort of our city's GIS user base up to speed. And so I think doing more of that would help us. I think operationally, GIS changes a lot. And so even getting some more training for us and other city staff is great. This tech is not it's not something where we have the system, the same practices are used year after year. It changes every 3 months, every 6 months. We're constantly doing new upgrades, learning new things. And so making sure that we still have the time and space for that would be really valuable for us as well.
Is that a line item in your budget?
Yes, we
Where does that
have
fall?
line items for both travel if we're going to conferences, seeing that, as well as training registration. So
And
that,
that's built into your
yes,
budget here.
that's built in there. It falls under, I believe, the professional and contracted services line item.
Okay. Do you think that's sufficient for this 3 to 6 month turnaround?
It's,
Tom
I
said.
yeah,
No?
it
No,
could
but
definitely be improved.
could
It could
definitely
be
be
improved.
It's, I know especially next year, it's looking a little tight for us where this is flat budget, our operations budget, which used to cover more of this, is kind of shrunk to cover the salaries. And especially we have some other higher costs next year. We fly aerial imagery every 2 years. And so next year is one of the years that we fly, and that's an additional cost that we don't have this year. So a little extra in our operations budget would definitely help us with that.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Nico.
Thank you.
Okay, next, I believe it's fleet. You can go if you want. I appreciate it.
Unless she wants to run it. Okay.
So we're joined with by Teresa Caudell. She's going to give a little overview on fleet, and then where it's a fairly new council, I was going to kind of go in depth of how we got to where we are with fleet. I know there's questions and concerns, and so we just want to make sure that we can take a little time and explain that the best way we can.
I should have mentioned briefly, we're on a new agenda item. We're on agenda item 3, if you're following that.
Sorry.
Okay,
Good morning. Teresa Caudell, I'm the Fleet and Facilities Director. Fleet, our mission statement. Our goal for Fleet is to provide a coordinated, consistent, cost-effective way to manage and maintain city assets. We do that with 10 FTEs. There are 3 vacancies in the shop right now. So the org chart is myself. We have a fleet and materials coordinator. That position does purchasing, vehicle registration, asset tracking, data entry, AR, AP, that kind of thing. And then on the other side are shop staff. We have the fleet operations coordinator, 2 shop foremen. We have 2 shop foremen because we run split shifts. So we run a 6:30 to 3 and an 8:30 to 5, Monday through Friday. That way we can accommodate the majority of the department's shifts. So there is a shift foreman, shop foreman on each shift that has a crew that works with them. We currently have a vacancy of an EVT, which is an emergency vehicle technician, and 2 mechanics. When we first established Fleet, we weren't sure what we were gonna need, so we had these positions in case. We do a lot of so about the department, our main focus is asset tracking and maintenance. In order to do that, we have a very robust software that tracks repairs, maintenance. We do capital improvement plans for the city. We do replacement plans. We have a lot of departments that call and they need to replace 2 vehicles. So they want us to tell them which of the 2 should be replaced. So we use our asset software to tell them of your vehicles, this one might be newer, but it's costing you more. So go by the data. There is a typo in that section. I put the 4 largest departments, but it's actually only 3 that I
We're gonna
put on
talk
here.
about.
So, sorry about that. We do procurement for any city department that needs and wants our help. So we try to keep everybody doing the same process, following the same guidelines, making sure that everybody is complying with the rules and regulations. And we do quite a bit of that throughout the year. We also oversee fuel operations. So we have a centralized fuel site that we do the maintenance and repair on. We bid fuel about every 2 weeks to guarantee we're getting the lowest cost when we fuel. We also do CDL training. So the city implemented a CDL program because we were having a hard time hiring CDL drivers. And so we implemented a training program. It's a computer program for the first portion and then a driving program in the second set of it. We also have simulators for staff that is pretty new to the system, to the driving, to the operations. And so we use the simulators quite a bit, and we have done a lot of CDL training since we've implemented that program, and it's been very effective and good.
Question here.
We have, correct me if I'm wrong, we have other organizations or municipalities that use us to help train some of their CDL drivers too. Is that correct?
We've had people come and use
Who are interested?
simulators
Yeah.
on occasion, but we haven't trained any other CDL
Okay.
drivers.
We've had a lot of people request it, but they've never actually followed.
Yeah.
And we're open to that.
Yeah, question here.
Yeah, so on this training and stuff, if they do this stuff, do they have to like make sure that they work for us for a certain amount of years? Since we're doing that, and are we paying for this service for them to get that?
Yeah, currently we haven't put any requirement of how long they stay. This has basically been a recruiting bump. It's really difficult to find CDL drivers right now.
Yeah.
So this is kind of a selfish thing on our part, kind of, where we can get somebody that comes in that doesn't have a CDL, and then we can get them up to speed on that. Because pretty much on all of the public works operation end, everybody has to have a CDL. I mean, these big vehicles and stuff. And so we were having a very, very hard time attracting CDL drivers. And so we put this program together to try and do that. We haven't put in any guarantees or something like that. That's something we could look at.
Do you feel like they're staying? Do you feel like they're staying, or
Yeah,
like,
I
are
think
they
the
leaving after?
majority stay, yeah. There has been some that, we give them 6 months to get it. There's been some that can't get it in the 6 months, and so we've had to part ways with them, and we've had a few that afterwards they leave, but just because the operator world is so competitive right now, it's hard to say if they left, for one reason or another.
So would that help us to have some kind of, you have to give us, giving us the education to stay for 2 or 3 years?
Yeah, I think it probably is a good idea we could look at.
Okay.
Yeah, and I know yesterday we were talking about that. With continuing education, they have to stay here for at least a year after, I believe it was, and if not, they have to pay it back. That just kind of that same concept. It's a good idea.
The people that are going for their CDL have to pay for their own license, and they have to pay for their own testing. We don't cover that, but we do help them along the way. The CDL training a couple of years ago got way more difficult than it's ever been. It's way, way harder to get a CDL now than it did 5 years ago. There's a bunch of book work that needs done, and we facilitate some of that.
Okay, sure, got a question down here.
So am I reading this correctly, that Fleet saved about $1,100,000 in 2025 just on parts?
So we can get into that a little bit. So
Okay.
We can jump to that right now. So that's a hypothetical number.
Okay.
So if we want to jump to that last graph, then we'll come back up.
This one?
Yep. So we have an IBS facility, which is, it's an inventory management system. And we partner with Napa Auto Parts on that right now. And they basically operate a parts store out of our facility. They staff it. We've got about $850,000 worth of inventory on demand, on hand, and we don't pay for any of that until we use it. So what we do is every couple of months, Teresa reaches out. We have a couple of shops around town that we have do price checks of what they can get parts for compared to what we can get parts for through our Napa store. So Napa has a markup of 5%. We negotiated that down to 5%. Typical markup at a parts store is around 35. So you can see when we did these, go back up, Rich, to the air. So for this one, an air filter, we pay $27. The two parts stores that we compared are 35 and 59. Some of the stuff we do really, really good on. Some of the stuff we're about the same. And so we do these spot checks quite frequently. Teresa does those. And so that's just an example. And based upon our parts usage and our spot checking, it's pretty considerable, the amount of money that we save.
Great, thank you.
So we can dive into fleet a little bit. I just figured we could talk a little bit about this. Will you go up to how did we get here? So in about 2016, we were having discussions about deferred maintenance, much like we've had here as well. And we put our hand up and said, hey, we want to try something. And so we looked at centralizing fleet into one location. The council at the time was very eager to do that. They felt that that was a system that we wanted to go down. So we started doing some research. We started to try and do a utilization study on all of the vehicles in town. And what we quickly found out was there was not a lot of data. There wasn't a lot of tracking going on. Some departments were really good, some weren't. So there wasn't a lot of data to make any calculated decisions on whether we had too many vehicles, we didn't have enough, if they're old, if they're new. So that was one of the things that we talked with the council about at the time, and they're like, okay, we want to get that taken care of. And so we moved forward, and they said, we want to do this. So in 2017, we purchased the facility over on Garrett Way. We sold the street department building and the sanitation building, and then we moved 3 departments together at that facility: street, sanitation, and fleet services. So in the middle of the middle of 2017, that's when we kind of got the approval to move forward and go for it. We purchased the property, like I said. We moved in, and we officially started in October of 2019. We initiated a fleet software. That was one of the most important things I think that we could do is you can't fix it if you don't track it. So we track everything. We track every repair. We track how many hours it takes to fix a vehicle or an asset. We track what the parts cost. We wanted to make it as transparent as we possibly could. So we got that going. Our asset count back then was about 645 assets. In late 2019, that's when we moved forward on the IBS facility. Basically, what that is we have 2 full-time employees that are paid by the contractor, which is Napa. They provide inventory at no cost to us. They provide the inventory that we want. When it first came in, they studied all of our assets. We got them an asset list, and they developed a parts list of what they felt needs to be on the shelf. And we're now at about, like I said, $850,000 worth of inventory on the shelf, which is a huge investment that we would have had to make. For example, we have to pick up garbage every day, or we have to, if there's a water leak, we have to go dig it and fix it. And so like if a hydraulic ram fails on a piece of equipment and it's got a 6-week lead time, that's just not okay with us, right? And we can't do that. And so we were able to tell them we want to stock these expensive parts on the shelf, and they're willing to do that. The one example I give a lot is Packer Rams on garbage trucks. They're a 3-month turnaround on Packer Rams, and they're expensive. They're, $15,000 or $20,000 a piece, and we have like 4 of them on the shelf, and we haven't paid for them until we use them. So that in itself is a huge benefit, to have those materials on site. So that's kind of what got us here, okay? Any questions on that so far? Okay. So what we've done is we try to build kind of a scorecard of how we're doing. We've put the 3 largest users of fleet up, which is sanitation, street, and police. They're the biggest customers that we service. So you can see on that budget per vehicle, budget per car, when we started fleet, it was about $3,450 per asset to maintain, and that's derived from the amount of the budget divided by the amount of assets. And so over a period of time, we've been able to lower that to a little over $2,100 per asset, which is a pretty big improvement. Street department, we haven't done so good on that, and we're going to talk about that, of the age of equipment, how important age of equipment is. So the average life of our assets in the city of Pocatello is about 13 years. That includes parks. They have old fleet. Streets has an old fleet. That can raise your cost by 20 to 40%, just with an aging fleet. So you can see that streets, we've progressively had a little smaller budget every year, and it hasn't allowed as much capital improvement or capital purchases that we'd like. And so we've kind of gotten a little behind on that one. We started at 17 years, and we're now at 19 years old. And you can see that the cost per asset shows that. As the age goes up, the cost goes up. In contrast, because streets and sanitation are similar.
Okay, yeah. So Tom, like in the street section here, does that include like sweepers and not just cars? It's like any motorized
Everything, yeah.
vehicle?
Yeah. So when you see that budget per car, that's budget per asset.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, sorry about that confusion. So when you look at sanitation, you can see that this is another good example of capital replacement and how it can save you money. So the sanitation department, we try and rotate those garbage trucks every 7 years. That's about the useful life of a garbage truck. So we haven't got there yet. We're working towards that. But you can see when we started in 20, the average age was 9 years, and it was a little under $20,000 per asset. Those vehicles are very expensive to maintain. We're now at 9 years old, so it's about the same. We've maintained, but it's almost $7,000 difference on the cost per asset. It just kind of shows the importance of replacement, right? You can only drag them along for so long until it starts getting expensive. Now, with that being said, we're also experiencing a conundrum with that, because some of these newer vehicles are super, super difficult to maintain. We'll get a new asset come in, whether it's a dump truck for the water department or a new police car comes in, and they deliver it and it's got a check engine light already on it. You know what I mean? And the biggest one that we have the most issues with is the emission systems. They're very labor intensive. And so it's kind of this double-edged sword of, we kind of like the old stuff because it's kind of bulletproof, but the new stuff, it is cheaper to maintain, but it's a lot more difficult to do that work. And so we've had to invest a lot more into diagnostic equipment. It used to be a 9/16 inch was the best thing a mechanic could hold. Now it's a laptop, because they have to get in and go through the ECM, the control modules, and try and make those work. Any questions on that?
I've got a few, Tom. Rich, if you can scroll up to the police. I'm wondering, a few things on here, Tom. So our asset count obviously has increased every year, but I assume that's not all patrol cars.
Nope.
So what's driving, it's a big increase in the total maintenance costs without upfits. What's driving that, I guess, is
Yeah.
my first question.
So some of the things that is, they have a lot of specialty vehicles. So it isn't just patrol cars. They got, the MRAP, their mobile command, they have motorcycles, stuff like that. So at first, that didn't get tracked, right? As we started, we basically were just tracking patrol cars, detective cars, and then we started getting more in depth. And you can see that in all of these. Streets went from 89 to 115, sanitation went from 21 to 52. It's just we've gotten more in depth of what assets we do track.
So that 71 on the top, was that maybe not fully accurate then because everything wasn't accounted for in that?
Yeah,
Or
it was
counted?
close, but no, there was still like trailers and stuff like that we've added along the way as well. So
Okay.
one of the big drivers too that pushed that up was we went to officer per vehicle. Hot seating, we call it, is very hard on vehicles as well as the people that drive those vehicles. So basically, somebody comes in from a shift, they pull all their stuff out, somebody else gets in that same car and away it goes. And it just, it's like riding a horse nonstop. You gotta give it some time to recoup. So, we
What
did,
year, I'm so sorry, Tom. What year did we switch to car per officer?
it was 21 or 22, somewhere. I think it covered a couple of different years. That's where the big jump went.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So I guess, I guess I'm just still confused why 193 to 346. It just seems like a really large increase. But the other question that goes along with it to me is the cost per car to maintain. It doesn't seem like we're seeing a decrease in that. I mean, it's kind of up and down, but I just, if you can give me a little more detail on why you think these numbers are what they are.
Yeah, so the biggest driver that's going on right now is parts costs. And when COVID hit, supply chains went down. They're still beating that drum. Parts are up 30% right now. They just are, and that's where they're at. Some of the maintenance costs are PD we worked together and got some hybrid patrol cars. Those are turning out to be a little more expensive to maintain. They're really good at first, but once they start, you got to start working on the battery portion and the electrical side. It starts getting more expensive. So from last year to this year, it's a big jump. And
Is
a lot-
that on the cost per car to maintain, Tom? Is that also that, there's when there's that interdepartmental charge,
Mm-hmm.
isn't that not only the parts and labor, but it's also the overhead and management?
Yep,
Like that's all
that all's worked into there.
in there, like, correct me if I'm wrong, on like one perspective with that, we were looking at the numbers for that O&M and they were, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but we had accelerated kind of charges there to build up the reserve. And now the reserve's at a really good level, maybe even a little bit high. And so I think part of that is like making that adjustment in that formula that we have for the O&M, because my education on that is that formula for O&M has been a bit high for a while, for good reason. We were building up a reserve, but we've talked about taking that factor down, and that could help drop it down. I don't know how much is accounted to that, but just food for thought, I found that out.
That was one of the things where we started a whole brand-new department, and our policy is to have reserves, a quarter's worth of reserves. We had to build that up. And then the thought at the time when we were doing that is, we need kind of a holistic approach to how we handle our vehicles throughout the city. Some departments have a good replacement plan and money, some don't. We always look at Parks and Rec. They seem to get the most of the hand-me-downs. And so we wanted to start building up some of this so that we could start, and we've already designed it, we designed it years ago. We have a capital replacement plan for every light-duty vehicle in the city of Pocatello. At some point, we would like to implement a program to use this reserve balance to start purchasing vehicles that need to be purchased, not just who has the money to purchase them. We have a lot of data. We can track cost per asset. We can see which vehicles are costing us more than they're worth. And then we can start trying to evenly distribute who gets new vehicles instead of who doesn't.
Yes.
So the police or Parks and Rec, when you manage vehicles for those two departments that are not within yours, like streets and sanitation would be, are those budgeted? Is there an interdepartmental transfer back to you so police pays out of their budget this budget per car back to you? Is that correct?
Yes, every month I do fleet billing where I send all of the repair work orders over to finance and with a listing of what the actuals were for the month. So this budget that we have set for just police, because it's on the top of this chart, that's what's budgeted, but we only use actuals. So that full amount is not given to fleet unless fleet actually uses it. So
Okay.
they do an interfund transfer every month.
I see. And so what percentage of the departments that you serve are on that interdepartmental fund transfer?
The only departments we don't serve are fire, transit, airport, and WPC.
Okay. So does the budget for street and sanitation also get billed back to
Yes,
fleet budget?
yes.
Okay, thanks.
And I don't think I answered Dakota's question very good. On the jump, you can see on the repair budget portion, it is a big jump from 24, but if you look, 24, we were almost 100,000 to the good in 24. So it's ebbs and flows. It depends on, you save money one year, you get hit another.
Yeah, I think what's just hard, I'll just be honest, I'm still wrapping my mind around, it's a 45% increase in total maintenance costs, but a 12% increase in asset size. And you would say that's parts and I guess the way we had designed our charges.
Yeah, and I don't know if we have the graph of it, but our labor costs are flat, pretty flat. Cost per work order is fairly flat, but cost of parts is accelerating quickly. And as we buy newer vehicles, those cost of parts get more expensive. For instance, a garbage truck, a headlight on a garbage truck right now is $2,500 for one headlight. It's just ludicrous.
And that was another question I wanted to ask about, because I've seen invoices that Fleet sends, and something that I haven't always fully understood is there's a labor cost on an invoice. And when we budget personnel, but we're charging labor on an invoice, initially, to me, it feels like we're double charging. So can you explain that?
Absolutely. Yeah, so Fleet basically pays for its own personnel off of that shop rate. So when we budget for salaries and salary-related expenses, we're basically just asking for the authority to spend money, right? To the authority to pay those employees. But throughout the year, that shop charge, when we work on a piece of equipment, that basically, as we charge the other department, that pays for the labor. So it does look weird on paper that there's two different.
Because
but-
your salaries budget, the source of the salaries budget are these interdepartmental transfers.
Correct.
Versus, I've had department heads ask this too. It's not that we put general funds in as the source of your revenue and salaries. That source is coming from your interdepartmental transfers. I've had the double dipping question too, and I've asked a lot, and have peace of mind that that's not happening.
We have a shop rate that we set, and it covers the incidentals. You know, when you're working on a thing, we use a lot of, it's called brake cleaner, you gotta clean the parts, you know, and so that shop rate covers those incidentals.
Well, and if I may, Mayor, I think and you mentioned this, Tom, at the very beginning, so I think we can just be open about it. There is a lot of questions about fleet from other departments. It doesn't always, I think it's hard to understand what they're getting billed, and you can see it in the numbers. So your salaries, 25 budget 809, but the actual expense 576. So that would be the difference between what you budgeted, but then your labor costs, right? But the flip side of that is our fleet charges were budgeted at 2.3, but we had brought in 2.9 in revenue, and then also in operation and maintenance, we budgeted almost 800,000, but we expended 1.6 million. So like there's some big discrepancies between what we budget and what we actually spend. So I'm just wondering, and also what fleet brings in revenue. So can you speak a little bit to those big swings from what we're budgeting and what our actuals are? And is 26 looking, we don't have 26 actuals, but are we kind of trending that same direction?
So some of the big problems with trying to budget this is, I'll use the street department as an example. Their snowplow trucks. There was one year where, these are those big trucks, right? The big dump trucks. They lost 2 engines. That's about $30,000 to $40,000 a piece for those engines. So there's years when you have a bad year. Parks and Rec's having a bad year right now. They've lost 3 or 4 engines in their vehicles. So it's really hard to plan for that. You know, you're gonna have the years when it runs pretty good, and you're gonna have ones that where things don't go so good. And so it's hard to budget for that. We try and make a calculation. We take the previous years, what their actuals were, and we try and use that to set what their future costs are gonna be. But it's very unpredictable. And I wanted to touch on this too, because we get this a lot. And I think it's interesting to see. So we have a couple of invoices of, the biggest thing we hear is, oh, your services are too much money. I can go to Grease Monkey and get it done for cheap. So we've had a few departments that have adopted that philosophy, and we got the receipts. And so we have one here that Grease Monkey was $268 to do a service. And they list here a 20-point inspection that they did. Our inspection's a 124-point inspection. And for that exact same vehicle that we serviced, it was $219 from Fleet. So the misconception that I can go to Grease Monkey and get it for $39.99 is just not true. I mean, this was $268 for that. So that's kind of why we wanted to just talk about this and get it out there and let you folks ask as many questions as you want. Is Fleet controversial? I guess.
I'm sure.
Makes for great live streaming
Yeah, it does.
controversy. The follow-up question to Dakota's point, what happens to that difference? Where does that land? So if you've got an actual revenue of 2.9 million and a budgeted at 2.3 million, where does the 600,000 go?
Yeah, if you look, the revenues came in high, and so that extra revenue is what covers that difference.
But I'm talking about, so
The other way around.
the fleet charges on that line there, if you scroll up. So fleet charges actuals was 2.9, but the budget was 2.3. So the difference there is 600,000-ish. Where does that money go? Where does that extra?
Yeah, into cash flow.
You're comparing an actual to a budget, and you need to compare the actual to actual. They collected 2.9.
Yeah.
They spent 2.7. So there's a difference.
Oh,
But the
okay.
difference is 2.5,
Gotcha.
and that would fall into their fund balance and become part of their reserve.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. And is that reserve held in 78, Fund 78?
No, that is held in, I don't know, what's your number?
51.
51, Fund 51.
Fund 51
There's a specific fund for fleet.
for fleet. Okay. And
They
then,
have a specific reserve.
okay. And then typically, do you know what that reserve balance is now?
I do.
Isn't it 1.4 million around there?
Yeah.
2025.
That was kind of the goal when we first started this. We wanted to try and get about $1 million in reserves so that we could start doing capital improvements and start purchasing vehicles holistically across the city.
So that reserve is what you want to use to purchase vehicles really as needed, maybe helping out Parks and Rec or the other departments that don't have as much vehicle budget? Okay. Do you have a plan right now for that 1.4? Can you talk a little bit about that?
So it's actually about 800 because 600,000 of that is our emergency.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have I think I got it. Where's that capital improvement plan? Yeah, we've got a spreadsheet this big of every light-duty asset in the city. One of the things that we'd like to start off with is motor pooling City Hall. We did a right-sizing analysis, and I think we need to start focusing on that again across the whole city. I believe there's 11 vehicles out here that are used by departments. What we do is, with this right-sizing analysis, is an underutilized vehicle is a vehicle that travels less than 3,000 miles a year. That's kind of the break point. And we can track that through our fuel site because they put the mileage in. We figured that we could probably reduce that to about 7 vehicles. And then we would have a central location where you can check out a key and take the vehicle. We think that would be a great way to start. One of the issues that we have is, like, let's say, human resources, when they have to go to a department to do interviews, they take their own vehicles. What happens when they get in a wreck? What's that look like? Finance has to take the deposit to the bank. They use their own vehicles. So establishing a carpool allows other departments, when they need to go do city work, they can check a vehicle out.
So that's first priority for the reserves is a
It's an option.
pool.
It's an option.
Yeah, and Tom and I talked a couple of weeks ago that reserve necessary and all that, but I thought it was too high of a reserve, because I'm more of the mindset like 600,000 is adequate and not the 1.4. And so we're in the process of, I think we need to spend down that reserve, and we talked about vehicle replacements somewhere. So we're trying to figure out a fair and equitable way. So kind of long story short, they're going to go to vehicle replacements for departments was my mindset
Yep.
with it.
What's the timeline on that? What's the ideal timeline?
Like this year.
Realistic
Could
and
be
ideal?
super quick.
This year, I think it's too high. I think we need to
In
deploy that
FY27?
money for I don't know which departments, we have to do it fairly, but Parks and Rec, for example, they've got a really old fleet, and so we talked about taking some of that, for example, so soon. I don't like it sitting there at 1.4 million.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
At some point in this process, could we get a list of all the reserves, 78 and otherwise?
Rich and I talked about that.
I think we've provided it to you before. It's the same. And reserves don't usually change unless we have a budget amendment or we close the year. So it would be fairly close, but we can get that to you. I mean, we can provide it to you every treasurer's report or whatever, you bet.
Okay, thank you.
So, yes.
Mayor, and I apologize that this is going long.
Oh, it's good
and
discussion.
we've got a lot of questions about it, but you said it, Tom, it is controversial. As a council member, I get more questions about fleet than I care to get questions about. And so I'll be honest with you, there's things with it where I can see where departments question things. So there's a couple things that I think we need to look at addressing. One is The budget discrepancies. I fully understand and agree. It would be very hard to budget something that is, so much is left up to chance. You know, if you have a vehicle that gets in a wreck, you can't budget for that. But it is hard when your O and M is budgeted at 800,000 and the expense is 1.6. Or, you know, fleet charges were budgeted at 2.3 and they came in at almost 3 million. So it'd be interesting to see our budget to actuals from the time we've had fleet. Are we routinely over on our actuals? You know, and maybe that says we need to look at what we're budgeting so we can be a little bit more accurate. But then talking about using you know, like a private contract, using other sources for vehicle maintenance. I understand when we started fleet, it would be hard to do like a market study when you don't have the data for it. But now we have, you know, 5-6 years of fleet with, and you've shown me, you keep meticulous records. We know exactly what we're doing with every vehicle. I think maybe for the peace of mind of all city departments and council to look at doing a market rate study to really show, okay, are we truly saving money with the system that we've set up compared to you know, what private sources in the community would look like. And so we've got the data. I can't imagine that would be that difficult to do, so that we can just get everyone on the same page with this and make the best decision possible about how we want to handle this. So those would be two of my suggestions I think would help. And maybe part of that study is looking at other cities and how they've, you know, with similar sizes and what they've done, just so we can really get a true cost analysis of everything we're doing. I understand, you know, Teresa, checking parts prices and everything, but I think maybe something a little bit more in depth and a little bit more broad would be beneficial for everybody.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think that's a great idea, and we can put the date on the calendar for a future work session and have the results of the study. I think that would be good for everyone. I get a ton of questions about fleet too, and I think a lot of it is education, you know, as well, just like the salaries question I received if we were double dipping. And then I've also been a real squeaky wheel with Tom and Teresa about invoicing quickly, but we all get lots of email or whatever, but just the importance of like really being diligent about getting those invoices out quickly. And for a while there, we were getting out both estimates and then the final invoice came later, which I think was a little confusing. But for part of that understanding or whatever for departments, like sharp, quick invoicing, we've been talking about that a lot.
We used to send out all the work orders to the departments when we first started, and then it just kind of dwindled off. So we've started that again.
And I would just second, I would be really in favor of looking at a city hall motor pool. I think that's, you know, a lot of municipalities and government agencies go to a motor pool, and I think there's a lot of cost savings. I agree with you, Mayor, that the amount of reserves is quite significant and we should spend that down. But I think at least looking at moving to exploring the idea of a city hall motor pool would be something worth looking at.
Yeah,
Mr. Mayor,
yes.
Dakota, when you say motor pool, what does that mean?
Tom, you want to explain it?
Right now, in City Hall, certain departments have certain vehicles and certain departments don't have vehicles. And what that would do is instead of that, having siloed departments with vehicles, it's one group of vehicles, you know, and then there would be a checkout station to check out a key. So when you need a vehicle, like if you've got an interview at, you know, Parks and Rec, HR can go over, check a vehicle out, and then go grab a car out of the line. So it's just a group of cars that everybody can use.
It obviously wouldn't work for every department, right? Like Parks needs vehicles that they're gonna use every single day. Our building department has trucks they're gonna use every single day, but
Yeah.
not every department
Yeah,
that from time to time will need access to a vehicle, but they don't need it every single day.
Or if an employee is traveling to Boise for a conference or whatever, instead
Yeah.
of renting a car or taking the mileage, they check it out from the fleet. So even out of town trips. Yeah,
that make
Councilman
sense?
Yeah,
Mangum.
For average cost on repairs, outside of the parts, what do you charge per hour approximately?
So our shop rate was $75 an hour. That includes all the overhead of the facility. We were building up the reserve amount, and we've now lowered that cost because we're getting to where we needed to be. And so it's now at 55? 60. So that's gonna show us a bunch of savings.
Yeah.
Isn't there also the O and M cost on that too, though? Like above and beyond just the labor charge of $60 an hour? Like when a department gets charged, don't they also get that overhead charge as well on the
Well,
invoice?
that's just rolled into the labor and the parts.
Okay, so it's all right, and I should know that, sorry.
No, it's fine.
So, okay, just that straight number covers it.
I mean, the average cost publicly is significantly more than what you guys are charging per hour, even with the O and M included.
Yeah, for example, Peterbilt's $225 an hour.
Yeah.
Courtesy Ford's,
I talked to Nissan this week and their hourly rate's $195.
Yeah.
They just bumped it up.
I took a car in not too long ago, a Chrysler, and the hourly rate was $150, and it was just the car. So the vehicles you guys are working on, they're obviously gonna be more.
there are some standard, nationwide standard KPIs, key performance indicator. And we're well in those margins of being very good
Yeah.
compared to other cities.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Sorry, one more question so I can clarify. So when you are over, like it says on your actual 25, you're saying that when you're over those expense, or that to get to zero, you use your revenues for that and your reserves to get to zero? Does
I
that,
want to cover that one. I don't,
does that make, I'm trying to figure out how you pay for when you go over in a budget. Is that right? Like, so
You would
they said
use reserves, yes.
reserves, not from the revenue, because they had more revenue than,
Well, so they would, in that particular case, that wouldn't be over in their budget. They would put the 205,000 in their reserves. They weren't,
The reserves.
they spent less than their revenue.
okay, so let me ask, so if you do go over, how do you pay for the over?
You would use your
You
reserves,
would do- Okay,
yeah.
just making sure. What if they don't have the reserves?
we
Then
do.
what? Okay, but what if you didn't?
Exactly.
Just
That's
for
why
all
we
the-
wanted
Be
to
in front
build
of you
reserve.
asking
For something.
to cover that, yeah,
Okay,
That-
it would come out of something else, because we'd have to
Right.
pay it.
Yeah,
Yes.
the fleet budget's a lot like what we're gonna talk about next, our fuel budget. We can predict what fuel's gonna be and what the usages are. And we try and set that number, but some years they spend way more and some years they spend way less. And that's just kind of the same with fleet. It's hard to track that.
You know, another really good example, not to muddy the waters, but if it helps you understand what's happening with fuel and fleet, in health insurance, sometimes you have a good claims year, sometimes you have a bad claims year. They estimate that you have a bad claim year once every 5 years. I'm kind of getting out of my wheelhouse and he's not listening, but, so, and that's how you deal with those things, right? Is every once in a while, one of our human resources gets sick. And we don't necessarily budget at the max, so,
It's pretty volatile.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And I think that's what leads to a lot of the controversy maybe.
And you can't help what the market does either, and the industry. So you're always gonna have that battle that you're fighting, especially with fuel.
New vehicles are crazy, like, it used to be 59-cent light bulb for a headlight. They're now $2,000 and $3,000 for a headlight, and
And you have to take apart half the car to change that.
Yeah, it's just a different world. So, but absolutely, we'll dive into all these questions you had and we'll get you some answers.
So, okay, well, I think we're finished with fleet, so we can move on. Thank you. Okay, let's move to agenda item 4, which is city facilities.
We're gonna-
Or did we go, okay,
Fuel. Can we
okay.
do fuel next? Is that okay?
Oh, yes, yes, please.
Okay. Fuel's another tricky one. This one impacts everybody, so I'm gonna talk about this one. As you know, fuel is very crazy right now with all the activity in the Straits of Hormuz, and we've seen huge increases. So the fuel site, that services almost all of the departments. Like WPC and the airport, they have fueling facilities, PRT out there. It doesn't make a lot of sense for them to come all the way into town. For airport, it's pretty much impossible to drive a 24-foot wide plow truck in to get fuel. So we service as many as we can. We have a fairly new fuel site that we constructed a few years ago. The last one we had was 33 years old. It was well past its useful life, so we invested in a new one. So this has been very challenging for budget costs, for the cost per gallon. You want to go down a little, Rich? So in '26, we budgeted $3.15 a gallon. For unleaded, diesel was $3.56 and DEF was $3.64. We use a plethora of different resources to try and understand and predict what's going to happen. There's a very useful website that's the EIA, it's the Energy Information Association. We use those pretty hard. We use them quite a bit, and we actually track their predictions month by month to see how accurate they are. And they have probably the best forecasting and accuracy. So with that being said, for '27, we're proposing $3.42 a gallon for unleaded, $4.04 a gallon for diesel, and then DEF has stayed pretty much the same. And DEF is diesel exhaust fluid, for those that don't know. That goes on the newer, like garbage trucks, dump trucks, even the equipment now. You know, you get a front end loader for WPC, let's say, and it now has diesel exhaust fluid on it.
Maybe Tom, so the 2027 cost per gallon, how often does that change to the end user? I mean, is this price set for all of '27, or do you update it every time you buy a?
So this,
Chunk of gas.
this is what we budget. So we tell the departments, this is what you used last year in gallons. We're gonna budget at this, let's say the 342, but then they they pay the actual amount that we get. So we don't charge them the estimate, we charge them the actuals. It's kind of like fleet. We charge them, we make an estimate, and then they get charged the actuals.
So I'm guessing you have big tanks in the ground and you fill them and it costs you so much money per gallon.
Yep.
And then you charge that until the tank's ready to be refilled with
We,
at another price?
yeah, about every 2 weeks we get fuel. We're very fuel heavy. I mean, we provide a lot of service. And so that's one thing that we kind of pride ourselves on. A lot of agencies do a 1-year bid of fuel. We're not really fans of that. We want, because it is such a volatile market. So we bid fuel every 2 weeks. We usually get 3 or 4 suppliers and then we go with the lowest. And then whatever that cost is for that span, that's what we charge the departments.
Great, thank you.
We do-
Councilwoman Swanson.
So because we're purchasing so much fuel, do we purchase fuel at a wholesale rate or a lower than retail rate? So 342 might seem low, given what we're seeing at the pumps now.
Yeah.
And
So just to give you a little bit of context to that, we actually buy unleaded for $3.07 a gallon. The other charges are like the admin charges, and then the street department owns the asset, the fuel site, so there is a cost that goes back to the street department
to maintain the site,
for the use of it.
Pay for the site.
pay for the site. Okay, I see.
So like diesel, we're getting $3.46 a gallon we can get it at. So we buy it really cheap
Because we buy so much.
because we buy so much.
And Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, I felt part of that surcharge to departments, aren't we, part of that is reserves for eventual replacement of the site, is that correct? Like yeah, okay.
So the street department owned the last fuel site. When we talked about the fuel site, about building a new one, there was two options of the city purchasing it or the street department purchasing it. Then it would have been a city asset. And there was some confusion because I explained it weird. I acknowledge that. But we determined that the street department was gonna own the asset again, and then everybody that used it would pay a surcharge or whatever I don't even know what the right term for it is, but. And that's 16 cents a gallon on the unleaded and 30 cents a gallon on the diesel. And that works out to between $80,000 and $90,000 a year that goes back to streets. Questions on that?
I think we're good for now.
The rest of it's pretty straightforward. I don't know if you want to go down. This is another one that's volatile. This one, we go over budget sometimes and we come in under budget. It's a lot like fleet. It's hard to predict. So we just try and forecast a number that tracks what the gallon usage is based upon the cost, and so that's where we're at. So, any questions on that? Okay.
And just to backtrack a little bit on kind of a fleet question, we talked about motor pool. We have the council and the priorities. One of them on the list is the zero emissions. And so, we've talked about that a lot. I don't know, we need to figure out, putting it out there, like the motor pool, maybe we start out there with electric vehicles and
Absolutely.
have a charging station. But I've had a lot of people that have talked to me about the importance. They want to see less emissions, and maybe that motor pool site, if we get started, we'd have to have a charging station or a couple of them there.
Yeah.
But just, any thoughts on like how to
Absolutely, that was
work
part
that
of,
in,
that
Tom?
was part of our plan. There's some challenges with parking electric vehicles out in the winter. So we'll look at all those options, but I think a really good place to start is the hybrids, of having hybrids. They're a little more tolerant to the cold weather. But we can absolutely look at full electric as well. We could have a mix of them. Yep.
Do you know how much it is to install a charging station?
The rapid chargers are very expensive, but I think it would be more than adequate for a slow charge station, because you just come in at the end of the night or the end of the day and it charges all night. So, I mean, those are $5,000 or $6,000.
Okay, yes.
Didn't you say the hybrids long-term were more expensive than the fuel?
I wouldn't say they're more expensive, they just get more costly for repairs. I think the fuel mileage savings you get the first half of the life covers that.
Okay. Good to know.
When we were just talking the fleet part, it looks like they cost more, but actually they saved a lot on the front end with fuel.
So, okay, well, I think we're good. Thank you.
Okay,
Do we need to take a quick break yet, council? or-
Move
Okay,
to
why don't we
agenda
take a
item 5
10-minute
now,
break?
which is street
We'll reconvene at
operations.
10:40. Right, oh, I'm sorry, I went too far.
yep, one
We are
more.
at 4. City facilities. Sorry about that. I'm just wanting this to end, so I'm skipping ahead. We have ways.
Said that on
Yeah.
We appreciate the eagerness, Mayor.
You
Yeah,
got your marching orders, you
Yeah.
better get on it.
Be done.
chop chop.
Pocatello, Fleet and Facilities Director. We'll get through this quickly. So this is labeled City Hall. Basically, this is custodial. So we do all of the minor repairs, the custodial in City Hall, police. We have some external locations where we do custodial services. So our basic functions daily custodial. Here, the library, the police substations, PRT, PRT may not be daily, but that's, we do custodial out there. And then we also do some deep cleaning, we do general maintenance, light maintenance that we can handle. And then all of the oversight for any of the larger maintenance and repairs on the city, this facility. We also own the facility in the parking lot. That might help with yesterday's comment about wanting liquor in the foyer. But we do own the building that the liquor store is housed in, so we do the maintenance there. We are also responsible for the maintenance at the police substation over by Fred Meyer. So currently in FY '26, we took care, well, with street and sanitation's help, we did an exterior facelift of this facility with the rebranding. We installed an HVAC mini split in dispatch. We put some new lighting out in the lobby. We are working with Idaho Power on some incentives for the rest of the lighting in the building. We've started some painting, gonna work through the facility with some painting. Our goals for FY '27, the other thing we're currently doing is we are painting the exterior of the liquor store this week, so it will look a little better out there as well. Our FY '27 goals, our HVAC system in this building, I don't know if you've noticed, it's not very consistent. It's,
Sorry.
we have a lot of breakdowns, we have a lot of issues. Some of the pieces are becoming obsolete. So our ultimate goal would be to replace the HVAC system in this building. That one's gonna be a big one. It's gonna be it's about 1.5, we think.
Do you have a question down here?
So, replacing the HVAC system, is it as simple as just replacing the air handling system?
No,
Putting new pumps on?
it's gonna be a top to bottom. It's gonna be a pretty in-depth replacement and project.
So I imagine
Zones.
we need to, remap it and
Yes.
establish zones, right?
Yes, yes.
The tough part, I think, on this is, you know, you folks have talked a lot about what it looks like in the future, right? Whether we move City Hall or make this the police. I mean, that's probably 5 years down the road, right? With the grants and all that and construction. We're nervous it's not gonna make that 5 years. That's this scary little predicament we're in, you know. It seems like most summers, the AC unit over in PD fails. And that's the part that fails on that is getting very hard to get, and it usually has to get flown in from Texas. There's like only one place that does it. So that stuff's just a little scary, but we'll keep trying to push it ahead as we can. But
So, and that one that fails on the PD side, that affects evidence, am I correct? The evidence area?
except for the ones that have, like, dispatch has a mini split now, that
Right.
wouldn't affect those.
Okay.
But we've brought swamp coolers over there for them because it just turns into an oven over there for them, and it's horrible. And it usually takes a couple of weeks to get the part, and then, anyway, so.
Okay, yes.
So I understand that whether we keep City Hall here or move it elsewhere, this has got to be done. It's just not an option. If we're gonna make this a usable space for police, staff, it has to be repaired. Or we're gonna end up with no climate control, correct?
Correct. Personally, I think, depending on which way you guys want to go, it would be nice to kind of master plan City Hall. Whether it's going to be all PD and fire, or whether it's going to be a combination of both, or what. So that if we do replace this thing, it's easy to retrofit to those upgrades. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think if we make that decision to move City Hall, I know there's a lot in front of us first. We're not doing it yet, or we didn't decide yet. But after that study comes out and after we know the outcome of the grant, although it may take 5 years to do the move, like in a year or so, we might know if we're making the move. And so like on the mechanical planning, because I get that, like if police moves over, your ductwork and that has to match how they're configured. So just throwing it out there, if we can push it along for another year or so till we know, because you can't just replace without knowing the configuration of City Hall, if I understand all that correctly.
That's kind of the sticky wicket we're in right now, you know. We're gonna do everything we can to keep it running, but
Yeah,
I think the big picture too, I think we need zones so that we can move things around, so that it's not specific to one specific layout, because we do tend to, I don't know if you've noticed, but we move things quite a bit. And so we need to plan for change too, so,
Mr. Mayor.
yes.
So do we have zones now, or is it just one?
it's pretty much two.
Two. And how many air handlers
Two.
of the big ones?
I
Two
think
big
2 or
ones?
3 is
I
all.
think there's 3, yeah. Did you say up-to-date ones?
No, no,
Oh.
no, just we have two, okay. And
I think
what-
it's 3 actually.
And what do we have for climate control system? Do we have an electronic one now that
Yeah, we
monitors
have,
it all?
go ahead.
We do, we have Climate Tech that controls that. We were looking at doing that in-house, but we have heard a lot of, don't do that, because it entails a lot of tweaks here and there. So we do still have Climate Tech on board that does all of the temperature controls and fluctuations and stuff.
So can you monitor and control that remotely?
They can.
Okay,
It's a pretty laborious system, because it's so old, you know, it's like playing Pong on DOS stuff, you know? Not really, but, we've looked at training to get staff up to speed so we can do it, and it's just kind of crazy.
all right, thank you.
So the goal for this division is to determine between critical need and discretionary wants. Everybody needs something. Our main focus is to figure out what we can do with this budget that we have. We have our operational budget for this. We have, like 300 operations, our O&M is 300,000 to maintain this facility, the liquor store, the substations. And so we do,
Library.
and the library does the majority of their own, but minimal things we take care of. But we do have to figure out what we can do within the budget. So that's kind of our responsibility, and what we're trying to figure out right now is a little better way to do that.
Question down here.
So we're talking about like maintenance on this facility. So I heard Chief Shy say that they need a new wall built or a fence built back there. Can that not come from here also, or does it have to come from police, or can it be a joint effort to attack that, or how can we approach that?
Yeah, that's kind of the discussion we need to have of, you know, the 330,000 covers a lot of the cleaning portion. There's not a lot of extra there for, you know, improvements. It's more of, but absolutely, I mean, it's the facility. The majority of this budget's for cleaning. That's the custodial end of it. There's not a lot of extra fluff for, you know, upgrades or improvements or replacements. And so we're trying our best to find that balance, but it is pretty tight. So, but we want to help out with that, you know.
I'm working with police. They need 2 mini splits put in. We have decided that they would pay for one if this budget pays for one. So it's kind of a give and take like that. We help where we can if there's the money.
Yeah.
So That's what it's here for. It's just a matter of making sure everybody gets what they need. Maybe not always what they want.
Yes.
So the fiscal year '25 is 500,000, then the budget almost doubled for FY '26, and then now it's back down to 575. Can you talk a little bit about that difference, or the revenues, I guess? Is that a, second question is, what does administrative support mean? What does that line item mean?
That's the transfer to pay for other departments
Th-
that we've talked about, those admin support.
Right, okay,
This is how, that is the revenue for this
Oh, I'm sorry,
department.
I'm sorry.
That's how this is funded, is through interfund transfers
Interfund
from
transfers, okay.
the departments in City Hall based on square footage.
okay. General budget question, Rich. Is there a way we can standardize that line item? Because sometimes it's administrative support, sometimes it's intergovernmental transfers, sometimes it's internal services. So that is hard to track.
Standardize the nomenclature?
Yes.
Yeah, you bet.
Okay, another question?
I guess, Rich, do you want to follow up on Councilmember Swanson's original question, just the discrepancy, the 505 to the 903, now 575?
We're still working on this particular budget, and I apologize about that. So what we did, where the 575 comes out for this year's budget, is we took an estimate of the actuals, of historical actuals. We do have an issue because this department is just being taken over. There is a lot of maintenance, there's a lot of things that have not been taken care of. We don't know exactly what the person beforehand was planning or doing. And so we're dealing with a lot of uncertainty. And so our estimate of 575 was different than what Teresa and Tom estimated it might take this time. And we're still working out that difference. And that will affect, one of the reasons we didn't make the changes is because we sent all of this information to you. And once we come to an agreement and make those changes, it will ripple through because of how we fund this department.
Okay. Councilman Nichols.
Sure. Hi, so the administrative support, as it's called here, revenue we receive from all of the departments, is less than the amount of our expenses to the tune of, what, $180,000. Why haven't we increased the administrative support so it just zeroes out? I mean, is that,
That's one option. And we didn't want to, because we had sent the information to you, we didn't want to show up with different numbers and have you questioning. But that is right? We need to go back and make that decision.
okay,
And yes, that is one option.
got it, thank you.
We're hoping by next year we got a better handle on this because it's fairly new to us.
Just real quick, I want to ask, so we've got 6 FTEs, 5 custodians, 1 custodial services supervisor. The breakdown in workload, so how much of what these 6 FTEs are doing is cleaning, and then how much of that is maintaining, if a door handle breaks or something? What's the breakdown there?
I would say about 90-10. The majority of what they do is cleaning.
Okay, so along those lines, have we ever looked at outsourcing the cleaning and what the cost differential may be?
I honestly do not know the answer to that.
I made an initial look at it. I really haven't done a lot, but there's formulas of cost per square foot that you can do. I will tell you that the track record of contracting hasn't been great. I know that we used to contract at street department, I think water contracts, some stuff. It's really hard to have quality control because there's a lot of turnover in that. And so what we've seen is it's not the greatest, but we can definitely look into it.
These people also respond after hours if there's a problem. They come in on holidays and weekends. They clean every weekend at the library, so it might
Cost
not
more,
be.
maybe.
Yeah, it might cost more.
We can look into it though and get you that.
Just
Just wondering.
Yep.
Okay, and then Councilman,
We had that conversation about outsourcing this last year, and I think the year before. But correct me if I'm wrong, the building official, this was under him,
Yes,
under our previous building
yes.
official. And so that 900, he had a specific project that he was working on, and if my mind is correct, which it usually isn't, I think he was budgeting or trying to budget for replacing the HVAC, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
But then again, I might be.
From what we've seen, there's no stockpile of funds that are accumulating, so. I think that may have been the intention, but it never,
That was the conversation that he was having with us.
Yep.
And so that's why I think we should in that 903.
here.
There are no funds for building in Fund 78. So if he was stockpiling, they're in the general fund balance.
Okay.
And they might be, but again, we have no record that that is what was happening or why.
I can go back through and look at the previous presentations, the budget presentations, and see what he presented and see what was done.
Okay, Councilwoman Swanson.
What's the turnover rate in our custodial staff?
It is kind of high. It's not terrible. We had one that we hired and he lasted 1 day. But sometimes if they stay and last through probation, then they're pretty good to stay. So it's a very early in the morning shift and not a lot of people like that. So it's hard work, and the pay, I think they're one of the lower paid ones in the city.
I was wondering about that. The salary budget is minuscule
Yeah,
for
they're-
6 FTE. That's just,
Yeah, they're, the custodians are a pay grade 2.
okay.
a lot of that
I'm
goes,
just, yeah.
go ahead.
I'm not going to complete my thought. You go ahead and complete yours.
Sorry, I
gone
interrupted your
now.
thought. Becky is she kind of runs and she's got a really good environment, like she's created a very team atmosphere, she does a great job, and I think the turnover rate probably should be a lot higher than it is. But she's a pleasure to work with, and I think that helps.
Their morale is high from I talk to them a lot every day. They're good and they seem like they're going to stick around and they have a good morale. I've always felt with them.
Mayor.
Yes.
Ms. Swanson, the current listing for a custodian is $14.94 per hour.
And those are all, yeah, they're FTs. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
So have we looked at expanding this service of sorts into citywide? Because you just handle this building here and a few other ones, correct? But we've got buildings all over and departments, I'm assuming, that do their own?
We have, the staffing was the problem originally. That might be something to consider again. But we did at one time, and it was a staffing problem.
All right, thank
We've
you.
talked about it a little, but that's as far as it's went. We can look into that.
Great, thank you.
Okay. I think we're good for now.
Awesome.
I think you're finally done with me.
All right. Yeah, thanks, Teresa. Okay, finally, moving on to Agenda 5, item was alluding to Mike Neville, from the Street Department, is here to present.
Mayor and Council, Michael Neville, Street Superintendent. Thank you, Rich. Running the slide. I'm not a big fan of reading slides, so the mission statement's there. A couple things I just want to highlight. We take care of all the roadways, stormwater infrastructure, our traffic control systems, signals, stop signs, crosswalks. We do take care of the levee, Port Neuf River levee, and we do a lot of incident management and emergency response for anything from flooding to car crashes to windstorms and trees down. We currently are maintaining about 344 centerline miles of road. That's 7.2 miles of Port Neuf River levee that we are very proud of, that we are got a really good relationship with the U.S. Army Corps. In fact, our levee report most years is something they like to show off to other sponsor agencies as a model. So we're really proud of that. Our department's broken up into a couple different, basically 3 divisions. We have the administrative staff. They do an awesome job with all the service requests, all the sweeping requests. All of you have heard complaints of potholes. Dispatching our crews out for that. We utilize, Nico was up earlier and did a great job about the GIS and how important it is. Streets is one of those that we use that every day. Everything we do is tracked, from those requests to every street light we touch, everything we fix is all in that system. So it's been a wonderful tool. One of our other divisions is more of our construction and pavement management. We do sweeping and to help us comply with our stormwater permit from the EPA. That pavement management plan has, as Tom has talked so eloquently before about, we are at a higher than national average. If you want to hear that, he'll have to take over for me. That's kind of his good thing. A lot of the complaints we do hear about potholes on roads end up being ITD-owned roads. I wish we had a good way to communicate that to the public. But please stop calling the street department about Yellowstone. I'm not going to go patch it. The ITD can handle that one. The other division would be our traffic folks. We operate the Traffic Operations Center for the greater Pocatello area in partnership with City of Chubbuck, ITD, and Bannock Transportation Planning. Through that system, we're able to modify all 72 signals in the valley for incident management. If there's a detour on the interstate, we're able to modify those signals, respond in real time. We provide all of that video to Pocatello PD, which I know Chief Shy is a big fan of. Those folks also are doing all of our roadway striping, traffic signs, and then other support for community events, block parties. I know Councilman Magnum's used that service before. We got the org chart. We've got roughly 40 positions. It shows a little weird. We split the facilities maintenance worker with sanitation. So we have that in our org chart. And then you can see the different divisions. We currently have 2 vacant positions. Some of our departmental goals for next year is to continue on our that aggressive pavement management plan. We want to keep that where it's at. It's important we're squeezing everything we can out of these roads, so it's important to stay up on that. We like to repaint every crosswalk in town that needs it, and comply with all of those federal and state rules that cover what signage you can use and things like that. We do a lot of stormwater maintenance that helps us comply with that permit from the EPA, and continue working on the levee. For our 27 goals, that would be roughly 30 miles of roadway that we'd like to treat in some fashion. Got our different levels of treatments. We would like to increase our snowplow routes with the annexation out on 5th. The growth in the North Gate and Highland area is really kind of, and also the airport. It's kind of taking that, spreading the crews a little thin. So we would like to try to find a way to modify our routes, add an additional route. One thing that's been a personal challenge, I know for me, is trying to get the signal finished at South Valley and Bannock Highway. We budgeted for that a few years ago. We've had a lot of complications with learning about the needs for retaining walls and geotechnical. But we do have our final plans for that, our PS&E plans, and be ready to go to bid hopefully next year. Our revenues and expenditures.
This is the biggie.
This is the ugly one. We lost $1.3 million from the state of Idaho. One of the things that shows up,
Go down.
scroll down a little, Rich. finance has been really awesome to work with the OpenGov, but some of the things we're working on is showing how our distribution from the highway user money and gas tax and then the state's general fund shows up a little different. So for example, if you look at that 160 in the other reimbursement line, that is the number from the state that last year was $1.3 million. This year, we're getting 160, and that's unfortunately not a typo. So we did try to break out and show that a little better, and I know we've been talking with finance about labeling that as such.
It's a little confusing because the highway user monies you've seen in the previous budgets all were lumped into one, and we're gonna start breaking that out a little better.
I actually did bring it. Should we share it?
Well, yeah, if you've brought copies, I did not bring enough copies if you have
Well,
them.
so if you guys, you've seen this is what they're talking about.
Thank you.
The highway user money comes in 4 different tranches. And that last line is the one, you can see the difference between the 1.3 and the 1, and then 160,000. And we're gonna break those out, instead of lumping them all together, we're gonna break them out in these 4 line items so you guys can track it. I did this because, in my opinion, like Mike said, this is juicy news. Every budget year has something,
Thank you,
and this is
Rich.
the biggest one.
So that's,
Sorry.
so that's kind of the big matzo ball in the room that, you know, we can get to later, I guess, about how we would like to proceed with that, but go ahead.
Yeah, if you'd scroll to the
sorry.
last little bit,
Yep.
keep going, all the way.
Oh, you want me to do
Yeah,
this? I'm
no,
sorry.
right here.
Oh, okay. Okay,
So that revenue reduction shows there, one thing that we've got a flat budget for the most part, other than it's negative $1.3 million right now. About the only increase that we've got in there is Idaho Power has increased their rates last January. I'm sure everybody has noticed that on their home bill. We need to raise that electrical bill that we're paying. That's in part Idaho Power's rate increase and then also that growth. You know, we're all happy that there's housing growth and development going on. When they add streetlights to a new subdivision, the developer pays for the initial cost, and then we take over the monthly maintenance charge and energy consumption. So we are wanting to increase that particular line item by 50 grand to make it through for next year. The capital outlay, I apologize for the parentheses there, that we're showing keeping the pavement management plan at that $1.5 million. That's been a number that we feel allows us to be effective and keep our roads where they're at, if not improve them a little every year and not be too aggressive on that. We are in desperate need of a new combination jet vac truck. The one we have is quaint antique. It does not help our age of our fleet at all, and it's currently broke down. It was not meant, we got it from WPC, which is great of them. It wasn't meant for hydro excavation, and we do a great deal of hydro excavation, so we want to get a purpose-built machine. The one other thing we're proposing to reduce is that we've been contributing $250,000 to the Fund 70 for the federal aid match. So for next year, we're proposing to not do that to help offset that deficit from the state. So with that, if you've got any questions?
I've got one on the pavement management, Mike. There's that matching grant now that's available from Portland Health Trust. Is there anything in the budget right now for a greenway trail upgrades, repaving, where we can take advantage of that one-to-one match?
So based on the funding mechanism from the state, the highway user monies, those are restricted to just road work.
Yeah.
Their streets also has a levy, a general tax levy. They have their own levy group or whatever it's called. So there's options if the council wants that we could use some of that money for greenway work. Historically, we've just thrown all that money into roads, right? But if that's something on the mayor or the council's mind, we can definitely make those adjustments.
Yeah, because and we've talked, Tom, like on that AMI trail at the Upper Ross Park, that one's in desperate need of resurfacing. And I get comments on that one quite a bit from the community.
Yeah, we've been working with Devin Helam at BTPO. He's been working with the Health Trust trying to, and I know you have been working on that too. We actually used one of our techniques we evaluate our roads with and went out and actually surveyed all the greenway trails to try to get that same PCI score and try to identify the ones. We're still working on that. It wasn't designed for that, but the company that we're using is really excited we're doing it. So we are actively trying to put together a plan. I know we've been working with Anna Parks on that too. And if that's a goal council gives us, we think we can certainly help out.
Yeah, just taking of that. Yeah, and we'll talk more as we progress along. But yeah, that 1-to-1 match, just I personally would like to take advantage of that somewhat
deal.
this year. So, yeah, question down here.
The Fund 70, the federal aid projects, can you explain what that is?
Yep, so most of the federal aid projects for roads come with strings attached in terms of a match. Historically, they've been 7.34, which was great. Most of those have gone up to 20%. So for example, the Center Street underpass, $10 million now. Streets is Fund 70. The 250 has been going into it every year to build up that match money for when we can get those grant opportunities. Right now, I think with what we have out there, we're at our capacity and our bandwidth for what streets can participate with. And then when the budget gets tighter, that's something that I think we want to take a little break and a breather.
Yeah.
If that's about the
I
right
think that was the
language.
big thing, is that something that we could kind of help with this deficit? And then we'll get back to that as soon as we can, but.
All of the projects that are currently allocated will be fine, but trying to do any more right now is just, we've got a lot in the works.
What's our current balance in Fund 70?
We had, we budgeted 3 million in there. 2 million of that's going for the High Line and El Rancho Signal. A lot of the projects we're doing, like the Benton Bridge over the river and the bulb outs and all that, we've already met those requirements. So we've probably got 500,000 or 600,000 usable in there. We do have to, the design for Pole Line Road, we have a design for Pole Line. That's 500,000, so that's gonna be the authority. We pay for that design and then we'll get reimbursed for that. The big thing that is really making us nervous is the underpass. The costs are going up because it's a 100-year-old structure and we're finding new stuff every day. And so some of that money in the fund balance will go towards offsetting those costs for the underpass.
So with around $500,000 unallocated in Fund 70, if we don't contribute $250 to it this year, you feel fairly confident if something were to come up in FY '28, we're not going to be too far behind the 8 ball trying to match something?
Absolutely, that's a concern we have. But where we had such a big hit this year, we just felt like that keeping up on our pavement and our stormwater permit and all that's probably a better use of that money until we can get a better handle on that.
Okay, yes. I think you're finished.
Yes,
Or-
sorry.
Okay,
Yeah.
go ahead.
I think it's important that the taxpayers that are listening or will hear about this understand that the state of Idaho took away $1.3 million from our street fund. It's really important to understand that, because when the state does that, the burden of that is going to land on the backs of me and of everybody in the audience and the 3 people watching on the screen. But so when I just want taxpayers to understand that we we don't look to them unless there's nowhere else to look, and you don't want streets with a bunch of potholes in them. And I'm looking at the property tax levy limits here for streets. There's, by state statute, there's no limit. Now, that doesn't mean that we're going to create a levy, but at some point, we don't have anywhere else to go to keep your streets fixed. And I think that deserves some absorption and some understanding in our citizenry. So I'll leave it at that.
Okay. All right.
Also, something to note on this, there's been a couple occasions the last 5 or 6 years where the tax ask for general fund, library, street, right? We have that cap that we have with them all. We have lowered the street fund to get more room in the general fund. And you can see that represented in 25, that property tax was 3.3 million, and that was lowered, that levy rate, by $680,000. So it's kind of a double hit that we've had.
I'm glad you mentioned that because I was going to make that point. And so I echo the sentiments of Councilwoman Swanson. It's a shame that we're losing that revenue from the state. But you said something about, well, later on we can discuss what your ideas were on how to remedy. I don't want to wait till later to discuss remedy. I want us to kind of have an idea of what we're looking at on how to remedy this, instead of just having this vague, like there's an idea, but, shots in the dark.
Yeah. To Councilwoman Swanson's thing, it's a hit. And the options we have now are very limited, and they're not sustainable. It's probably been, 6 years, the state's been pretty good to streets. There was a House Bill 312 or something. We were getting quite a bit of money coming in. We did cubby that money, right, for rainy days. And so we do have some excess reserves, which is some of that money that we've tried to just hold for the bad days. The way that we run the pavement management is kind of on the razor's edge. When I started in 2001, the paving budget was $1 million. And up until 3 years ago, it was $1 million. And we've eked it up to 1.5. And the streets department has had to get very creative on how we take care of roads now. We've had to put a lot of cake frosting on, right? They're not as smooth as we'd like them, but they're sealed up. And right now, that's probably the only option, is to dip into reserves, because we don't want to skip a year, because we don't want to lose what we've gained, but that's not a sustainable option. So there isn't much.
What's that reserve balance? I'm sorry, Rich, I can't find my,
You're fine. That's why I bring this. The street reserve is 6.1.
and we're projecting a deficit of 1.3, so if it all were to come actual, we'd be saying of the 6, 1.3 would come out of reserves.
If I may, because there's been a little bit of talk about the levy and there's no limit. We are still subject to the 3% limit. Okay, I just want to make sure that that's clear. And when I presented that tax L2 breakdown, that did include the 3%. I mean, I am presenting 3% and 1% foregone in those monies. So, okay.
Thanks for correcting that.
No worries.
Yeah,
No,
we're not going
yeah.
to put
Right.
an unlimited tax, but yes, it is 3%.
Right. That would come into play if other funds were at their levy limit. We would still be able to take advantage of the 3% and put it into a fund where their levy limit is not met or there is no levy limit. That's how that would come into play.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mayor?
Yes.
I think this is an important issue for us as a council to have a discussion about what our long-term solution is going to be. I can understand, and I would agree with it's such a unexpected hit to the streets budget that using reserves to kind of weather this fiscal year makes sense to me, and I appreciate all the efforts you've made to try and limit the impact as best you can. But, I mean, I don't feel like the proper solution would be, okay, over the next 2-3 fiscal years, we ask the streets department to find a way to operate with $1 million less.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to find those funds and those cuts other places.
And using reserve year after year, as you said, is not sustainable.
Yeah, so whether now's the time or later on in the budget process, but we probably have to start making some of those adjustments and looking for cuts in other places in this budget so that we can start slowly. Maybe next year we're only using $600,000 of reserves or something, but my position would be, I don't want to say, okay, streets, make a plan to operate on $1 million less in the next 2-3 fiscal years, so.
I agree.
We've had discussions about that as well. One of the big expenses in street is labor, right? The way that the street department has established their labor rate is based on snow removal or the labor quantity. We have a certain amount of routes to plow, and we need to plan for 24 hours on off, because we have DOT regulations. So if we need to cut employees, that's some of the discussions we probably need to have, but that'll have consequences in the winter is the only big thing, but.
Yeah, and I do agree. We need to assess and find something that is sustainable. And we talk a lot about curb appeal. That's one of our priorities, and good-looking streets really does create good curb appeal. So I know that's like our number 3 priority in our plans.
Mr. Mayor.
Sure.
I hear you, Tom, on being labor heavy and cutting employees, but the ripple effect of that is pretty massive and can be drastic.
And could be hard on you folks.
And could be really hard, yeah. I'm not necessarily worried about
Yeah.
hard on me. I'm more worried about hard on the people who are burdened to do that work. And are they actually able to get that work done? Because now the streets and the rest of the city has to pay the price for cutting staff in that way. I think it would be wise to hear or to go through the rest of the presentations throughout all the departments. And then when we get later on into the actual building of the budget is where we come up with how we create those cuts or where we make those cuts. I think that's the most appropriate course of action.
Yeah, okay.
We just put that, we're soldiers, right, in Public Works. We'll do what we gotta do to make it work. I
And
appreciate that.
hopefully, they're adjustments.
Adjustments. Thank
Hopefully,
you.
that's what they become, is adjustments, not.
Right. Okay, yes, Councilman Paulson.
I agree with Bates that we can't just not fund streets. Like, I know it's not fun to use reserves, but we do have them for a reason. And
Correct.
if we're not providing water, roads, et cetera, like what's the point of even having a city?
I know we're not fans of using reserves, but that's what reserves are there for, is to be used for situations like this and other situations where there's a shortfall. Corporations do it all the time. Businesses do it all the time. In your own finances, you probably do it all the time when you dip into your savings account because there's a shortfall. And so it's not a popular thing. It's not what everybody wants to do, but ultimately, it's what it's there for. So I just hate the idea. I just hate the sound of it being such a dreary, sad experience. Well, we got to use reserves. Well, that's why we have reserves. And I think that we were fiscally responsible for setting money aside in reserves just in case we had a situation like this. Do we balance the budget off reserves every year? God, no, we shouldn't. But that's why we save, and that's why we have reserves. So,
Yeah, just think the bigger issue is if we do that year after year.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Like 1 year, an anomaly year or something,
100%. I agree.
so, okay.
Now, sorry, one more distinction. Rich, did you say excess reserves, or was this just the reserves? I know there's somewhat of a difference.
No, that would be their capital plan. The numbers I give you always take into account their 3-month or their
Okay.
90-day. If you were going to eat into those, I'd put my siren on.
Okay,
Be like, oh, you guys,
okay.
hold on.
The other part of those reserves that we've been kind of cubbyholing is you saw in the fleet presentation how old their assets are, and streets is definitely responds to a lot of emergencies, and so that was part of that reserve as well, is to start upgrading. So.
And did you have something, Councilwoman Swanson?
I did, but I forgot what it was.
Maybe it got answered.
Oh, I'm sorry, I do remember now. I know you're not tea leaf readers, but do you have any impression or understanding of the state's cut here, and any prediction about whether that was a one-time thing or it could change with the election in November? Do you have any thoughts that
I
way?
have zero.
Yeah.
Wasn't a lot of that because of the income tax reductions the state took, and now they're like trying to balance that?
Well,
When
and
we first saw it, we thought it was a typo. You know, it was supposed to
Okay.
be 1.16, not just 160.
Yeah, sure.
the
Councilman Paulson.
governor's office did say that it's, well, supposedly a one-time cut for the purpose for people to, or for cities and counties, whatever, to get back on track with your projects. Instead of just keep building more, you can just maintain what you have. Supposedly one time. That was the published.
Supposedly one time.
Yeah, will be interesting next year where that lands.
We'll see.
I do think it will be a topic of discussion. It's very hard to decide what the legislature will do. It's House Bill 976,
Yeah.
if you're interested, and I do think they'll discuss it.
Yeah, and we have the Association of Cities Conference next week that most all of us are attending. That should be an issue we talked about, and getting them behind some lobbying there. I think we might find a little more next week when we go to that conference.
I'll take a deep breath and say more at the conference next week.
Yeah, please do.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thanks. We are going to move on to agenda item 6, and that's sanitation department. And Carrie Farnsworth, sanitation superintendent, is here to present.
Good morning, Carrie Farnsworth, Sanitation Superintendent. I'm here to talk about sanitation today. I'm
Can I
gonna,
do one thing real
Yep.
quick? So the next three budgets you're gonna see is sanitation, water, and WPC. We're hopeful they can go pretty quick so we can get you guys moving. What we do in those three utilities is every 5 years, we do a rate study, a financial analysis. We take into account growth rates, we take into account capital improvement projects, water WPC projects, sanitation's more equipment driven. This rate study we're on is good through FY '29. So in the latter stages of '29, we'll go through this process again to start one in FY '30. It's pretty consistent. We try and keep the increase to about 3% every year. We spent about $125,000 on this study. And so we've had really good success with just kind of staying the course with these. What we get really nervous about is we've seen this in other communities where their rates don't adjust, and then they have this big expense, and And so that's why we try and plan ahead with this rate study to make sure that we're not in that predicament. And I think through the next three presentations, you're going to see that planning pays off when you look at the prices of service to the comparable cities around us. So,
Okay.
And important that rate, that our rate resolution will be in front of you as part of our budget in August. So,
Okay, so for sanitation, our mission is to provide reliable and sustainable sanitation and recycling services that protect the public health and environmental quality of the community. In our organization, you can see we have 49.5 FTEs. That's made up of both administrative staff and operational staff. And both are very integral in the workings of the department. Our administrative staff is kind of the backbone of it. They take in a lot of our service requests and work orders that can range from anywhere from 100 to 150 a day. So our phone system is very busy almost every single day. Tom says it a lot that garbage does not stop. It continually accumulates. So with that, they handle those and give those work orders to our operators who go out and actually perform the services in the community. Our operators are out in their trucks every single day. That is one of their most important assets that they have, is the truck that they are in, and to be able to service the carts and the containers out there. We also have a two-man crew for our weld shop. They are fabricators and welders that help us with our repair and maintenance of our containers and some of our equipment. We service about 22,000 customers annually. That's anywhere from our residential customers to our commercial customers, including both cart service and container service. Additionally, in the department, we have additional services that we provide, such as our leaf collection, our holiday pickups, our Christmas tree disposal. We also have programs that help our elderly and disabled, where our operators actually do get out and get their carts for them. That seems to be very important for some of our elderly community to be able to have that type of assistance. We also participate, on daily basis, we do our right-of-way cleanup. I think that's an important part of what sanitation does as well. Like Mayor Dahlquist says, that we want that curb appeal. And I think that right-of-way cleanup is very integral in that part.
I've had lots of citizens comment that they've seen that pickup this year and are very happy about that. They see the crews out there.
Yep,
So I think that's great.
yep, they try and hit all of the community to get that done.
Right-of-way cleanup, is that meaning just along the sides of roads? Or
Correct, yeah. We focus on the right-of-way. We don't go onto private property, but we do focus on those right-of-ways that are the city's purview.
so if you see a tire or a mattress on the side of the road, we want to go get it.
Looking at the department as well, we look at three main divisions. We have residential, commercial, and recycling. Each have a crossover with each other. Our residential takes into account garbage carts, recycling carts, yard waste carts, and also temporary containers. We have those temporary containers that our residents can have at their homes to help with cleanups in their yard or in their home. Those are very popular. We have found in the last few years those have increased quite a bit. On our commercial side, we also have garbage, which incorporates the 3-yard and 6-yard containers for our commercial customers, a lot of our restaurants and businesses around the community. And then we also have our roll-off and compactor service. A lot of our industrial businesses around town use compactors that we also haul for them on the commercial side. And then our recycling services. This is one that we are extremely proud of right now. We have seen a lot of success in our recycling, particularly since we have opened up the recycling facility. We've grown leaps and bounds in the last year, and we have shown that we are very good stewards to the environment with the services that we're providing there. Just this fiscal year, with all of the recycling that we've picked up and the drop-off locations that we have at the facility, we have been able to have about $10,000 to $11,000 surplus over and above our operating costs for recycling. So I think the city should be very proud of what they're doing there.
So our, previously, our recycling costs, we were spending anywhere from 30 to 35,000 a month on recycling. And we're now, currently with our all-in costs, we're about 11,000 a month to the good, which is just huge. I mean, that's big money.
Okay, if I can ask about that. So looking at our revenue, we're budgeting, is that 90,000? The sanitation, commercial recycling collection fees, is that what we're projecting for revenue for recycling for 27? I'm sorry, there's a lot of,
Yeah, there
you
is a
got a
lot.
lot of lines in
Yeah,
here.
so in the on the revenue side, there are several different lines that incorporate the recycling. So we have the actual recycling cart that we get revenue for, the compactors for cardboard that we get in, and our commercial cardboard program. All of those are revenue sources that come in for the services that we provide, as well as the cardboard drop-off. And at the facility, we also get a commodity rate for that when we can send that directly to the mill. So that is another revenue source that we have.
Oh, so the recycle commodity, we've got budgeted revenue of 50,000?
Yeah, so we put that in because we still are kind of in the infancy. We're very conservative in that number. We do believe it will be more than that, but that would be a good conservative number we're going to use there.
Yeah, some question down here.
So we also service surrounding communities, correct, who bring their recycling to us?
Correct.
Where is that found in this?
That would be part of the actual lines in the services, the
Okay.
recycling service. Like Chubbuck brings us their single stream, so they get charged for that through the recycling facility.
Okay.
And they charge a baling fee. So the recycle center is basically a baling facility because like single stream, we call it, the stuff you put in your blue carts is really fluffy. It takes up a lot of space, but it doesn't weigh a lot. And so we drop it over at that facility and then we squish it into bales so it's easily transported.
Okay.
Sorry, Carrie. So I'm just wondering, with these proposed budget amount, the revenue pieces on this, on the recycling side, how are those comparing to where we're at with our actuals for 26? Are we, because I can't see 26 actuals. I assume you kind of know where we're roughly at. Are we going to see an increase in 27 from where, on revenues with recycling?
Yes, most likely, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. We have currently gotten some new rates on commodities, and it's looking really good, both on the single stream side and our cardboard. Those commodity rates are going up at the moment. So we do anticipate the increases for those.
So we have to pay to get rid of the single stream, but we get money for the cardboard.
So I was wondering on our, when we do that rate study, as our revenues increase, how does the recycling affect our just general sanitation rate study? Is that revenue included and affects
be.
it? Okay,
Yes. It never has been before because we've always had to pay for it,
yeah.
but those revenues will be included in the next study.
And we've talked about maybe doing an amendment to that rate study to see if we could potentially, if those new revenues came in, what it would do to the effective rate.
What are the other communities besides Chubbuck? I know Burley, I think it was, came for a site visit. I don't know if that came to fruition or is it only Chubbuck?
And American Falls.
Oh, and
also
American
brings that.
Falls, okay.
There was a stretch where the INL was bringing theirs. Amazon brings cardboard down from Idaho Falls. Yeah, we've had Idaho Falls come, Burley. We've had a lot of people that want to partner with us. They're just trying to figure out how they can transport it to us. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up.
All right.
So then we move down to our we have a graph here for our waste diversion. Now, this diversion only includes our residential side carts for our carts. So we send over 20,000 tons to the landfill each year from our residential carts. But then on the recycling side of it, we take 4,500 away from that, that is then diverted from the landfill. So I think that shows that we are definitely trying to help the environment and diverting that material for a reuse purpose. Some of our department goals that we have, first and foremost, is our goal every year is to make sure that we pick up the garbage and make sure that it's taken care of. We want to provide a wide range of community resources and then support and promote our environmental stewardship. With that one, this year we're going to try and expand our commercial cardboard program. Right now we're looking at about 95 customers. We do have room for growth on what we have now, so we're hoping to expand that this next year by going out and contacting commercial businesses to tell them the benefits of our commercial cardboard program. Another projects that we're looking at, we are looking at upgrading the recycling facility. We did our upgrade on the building itself last year. We actually had help through a supplemental environmental program where we received $1,095,000 to help with that renovation. That renovation is now complete, and it's been very helpful over there for our operations. For this year, we do want to look at the citizen drop-off area and make that more accessible to the citizens, make a better traffic flow in there, and just improve that area for those drop-off locations. And then we also want to look into exploring a city-sponsored compost program. That's something we've talked about for a few years. We got sidetracked with recycling, and now we're bringing this compost program back up to our forefront. Some of the things that we are looking at right now and have some logistic things we need to look at is to find where to put it. So that's going to probably be one of our most challenging things to look at right now as to where we can put a compost site.
Yes, please.
I'm just curious about the composting program. Would that be an additional cart, or would that be?
Right now, it isn't, it already is available. We do have a compost cart for waste, yard waste.
Yeah.
Those are right now being taken up to the Bannock County landfill. They have a compost program up there.
Okay.
What we're kind of looking at is hopefully to create a better product, more useful product for the community to use. Right now, a lot of the product up there is only grass, and compost requires both grass and woody vegetation to make a good compost. So that's something that we would strive to do, is to make that compost more usable.
Is there how much space would you need to do that kind of work?
Couple acres, it's not
Couple
that
acres.
big of a deal.
Yeah.
It's basically a flat paved surface. You dump it and then you turn piles. It takes about 90 days to make it.
So would we start accepting more of the woody products
yeah.
then? Like,
Yeah,
because
we've
I know
talked-
the cart right now is really restricted on what you can put in there.
The big thing that I think moving forward on this, we've talked with Ann at Parks and Rec about getting all their chipped wood, and then we would probably open it up to some of the tree services to bring their material out, because it's like a 2-to-1 ratio almost of carbon and nitrogen, or woody vegetation to the nitrogen. That's one of the issues with the county's product, is it's too nitrogen rich and it kind of kills everything it lands on. So the woody vegetation part's gonna be the challenging part.
Would
I think
that
we have
be-
options for that.
Just a thought, would that be a good fit for the community garden area?
Absolutely. And that's another thing as we move forward in this, of how we want to handle that product. Is that a service that we give to the community, that you can come pick up compost? Is it something we want to charge for? So these are things we'll talk about. We'll probably be coming to you at a later date on more details of that. Yeah, absolutely. compost is like magic. It's awesome stuff. We heard a story. Well, we'll talk about that later. It's already been a long day.
Okay,
Okay.
exciting stuff.
Okay, so the next graph here is our rate comparisons. So this is our current rates that we have right now. And I know you can't quite see it all on this, but Pocatello is one of the lowest rates amongst the communities that we looked at that have the comparable service to ours. This service includes both garbage and recycling. So as you can see, Pocatello's only above Twin Falls at this point. So we feel our rates are very competitive and are very effective in what we need to charge. So talking about some of the budget stuff, like we said, our revenues are based on our 3% based off of the rate study. We did add a slight amount of revenue for the recycling that we are seeing now. Our operations and maintenance are just any of those adjustments are those small adjustments based on our trends and what we do there. We do have some professional and contracted services. We do have the Pocatello Creek landfill that we still are doing groundwater monitoring on. So we do have to hire a consulting service to do that for us. And then our capital outlay is our vehicle replacement program. Right now, we're looking for this year, we're gonna order 2 side load trucks, 1 front load truck, and 1 roll-off truck. And we have that planned out for throughout the rate study on how many trucks we purchase each year. And for this fiscal year, you can see we do have our revenues and expenses the same. With that being said, throughout the rate study, with sanitation, we have some years where we are using some reserves because we do have some built up reserves. So at that, for this time, this is one of our building years where we do use some of our reserves. So you can see that top line right there is we're gonna use $756,000 of our reserves.
And that's what we get out of the rate study. You'll see that with water, WPC as well. There will be times when we spend a lot in one year and then we make up for it and build it. And that's what the rate study does for us, is makes that a very organized and planned method. Any questions?
Are we still seeing an increase in the roll-off demand?
Yes. Just this last month, we have seen, it's been fairly steady for the past several years. I mean, we used to have a downtime, especially in the winter. We haven't really seen that. But we do see an uptick in the spring and then in the summer a little bit, especially with construction. Just last week, we had 49 roll-offs in one day. That is a lot for our department. They were scrambling, and I can't give enough kudos to our crews, how they pull together and help each other out to make sure that every one of those work orders get done. So yeah, we still see a lot of roll-offs coming in, and we expect those to continue, especially with a lot of the construction work that's going on out there.
Carrie and I have talked, she's pretty nervous about the roll-offs. Like we have nine roll-off trucks, and 6 pulls a day is you're cooking, because you got to drive all the way to landfill and all the way back with those. And they can do 6 of those in a day. 7 is what we're doing right now most days, but if you do that, that's 54 roll-offs is kind of our cap. And we did 49 the other day. So it's, if anybody says Pocatello isn't growing, it's growing, because we do a lot of construction stuff.
One other question about, so the improvements to the recycling facility, I'm wondering, what's our current capacity at that facility? How much room do we have to grow? If we're gonna go out and, we're trying to basically drum up more business and get more citizen participation, how much capacity do we have there?
We probably 2 to 3 times. It's, The way we've kind of staffed that and why it's advantageous for our recycling is it's just right down the street from the other facility. So when the trucks come in and dump, there's a gap for a couple hours in there till they come back later. They can go do other things at the other facility to fill that time. But yeah, we have a lot of available resources.
So the reserve amount that you're talking of using, the 700,000, it is the improvements to recycling part of that amount? Okay. Yeah, I'm just wondering if maybe, I kind of like the idea of recycling, and Rich, I don't know, maybe from an accounting standpoint of if the recycling facility could kind of pay for itself, if that makes sense. As recycling continues to build a surplus, we're only using funds from recycling for the improvements to the recycling facility rather than just general sanitation funds. Because our reserve funds are included in that rate study, right? I mean, if we have a healthy reserve, that should bring our rate or help keep our rates low. Just a thought on my end.
Yeah, we've kept it all together right now because it was that sanitation aspect that funded the purchase and the infrastructure for
Which
it.
makes sense.
I think that it fits in the sanitation fund, but maybe we could talk about
A division.
department. Yeah, or a division,
So
yeah.
you're kind of we're
could
talking
easily
about
do
a
that.
standalone cost center just for recycling.
Well, yeah, and I don't know that I'm necessarily saying I feel like it needs to be its own department. And maybe that's what it would have to be to do what I'm talking about. But I just like the idea, if we're going to do improvements to the recycling facility, that's funded through
Recycling revenue.
recycling and not through, excess that we're getting off roll-offs and sanitation, so.
Well, and I think Tom and I are talking about accounting. We can account for it that way.
Okay,
I don't think that would affect what is happening on the ground.
okay.
And I can tell you that 700,000 that we are using in reserves is what our rate study predicted us to use even before we had the recycling facility.
Oh, okay.
So we do have additional revenues in there for the recycling facility that we're getting right now, that we're anticipating, that is covering those improvements to the recycling facility.
Sanitation's is kind of outpacing the rate study. They're generating more revenue than what the rate study had predicted. Okay, anything else?
Looks like
Thank
we're
you.
good. Okay, thank you. Council, shall we take a 10-minute break? Okay, let's do that. We'll reconvene at 12:10.
See all these breaks.
It's like when I'm being
Reconvene that we're moving into agenda item 7, which is Water Department. Tom Kirkman and Justin Armstrong will present.
Thanks, Mayor and City Council. Justin Armstrong, Water Superintendent. So we'll get straight into our mission statement. It's pretty straightforward and simple, but a lot involved with it. So the City of Pocatello Water Department's primary mission is to provide a safe, reliable, and adequate supply of drinking water for our customers at the lowest practical cost. So we have 44 employees, full-time employees. We currently have 3 vacancies within our department. Those vacancies are senior equipment operator. We have two vacancies there, and then an equipment operator position.
If I may, that's something that we're seeing across all of Public Works is it's difficult to hire operators right now. So there is a fair amount of turnover because it's a pretty competitive job market right now.
Yeah, especially with all the construction activity within our area, finding specialized equipment operators to work on our crews is definitely been difficult, retaining those individuals. So within our organization, really kind of 3 distinct divisions within that, and that's our administrative group, our purification and storage group, and then our distribution that has some additional support functions under that, such as warehousing, a welder, and then a dispatch administrative assistant position. Water department goals this year, actually this is every year. So water quality and safety is our primary goal always. So providing safe drinking water that meets all regulatory standards and supports our community's growth. What goes into that is a lot of production treatment and a lot of water quality sampling. So this last year we had provided 2,000 water quality tests to ensure compliance with all regulatory standards, and testing for over 100 constituents within water. So a lot goes into that, a lot more beyond what the typical user sees when they just open the tap and ensure that it's ready for their cooking or culinary needs. Second goal is reliability and resilience. So we're always trying to optimize our operating efficiencies by properly planning, operating and maintaining infrastructure through continuous improvement and innovation that increases our system reliability. So a lot of the components are old infrastructure that was placed well beyond our life, and we're always trying to constantly maintain that, preserve it, and keep it running operational. And looking at efficient ways to do that. So part of our process is when we select capital improvement programs, we'll go out, we'll assess various areas. You've heard from our GIS department, so we use asset tracking, GIS mapping. We map all of our service line breaks, work orders, mainline ages, various things like that. So it's not simply just going out and replacing a water main that's maybe 100 years old. We've got areas throughout town where we've got 100-year-old mains that are outperforming some of the mains that were put in back in the 1950s. Some of that's due to corrosion of soils or factors of material that was built during certain eras of time. So, and then strategic planning. So developing both short and long-term capital improvement plans that help support the needs of our community while preserving and limiting water resources into the uncertain future. So again, like I said, a lot goes into our planning. We go through, we create outlooks, both short-term, long-term outlooks to see how we're meeting the demands and utilizing water efficiently throughout our system. And then the last one is financial sustainability. So ensuring long-term financial stability with fair and equitable water utility rates that meet operational needs. We'll get down to the end which will actually compare some of our rates locally within our region to other communities. So a few accomplishments that we're currently in the process of or have completed. Replacement wells 2R and 22R, those completed this last fall, and those have been successful projects. Those were two new replacement wells that replaced one well that was drilled in 1920s. It was approaching that 100-year mark and had been subject to some issues with nitrate MCL exceedances.
Was that the one on Cedar, Justin?
So that well was well 2, which was out at Ross Park area.
Guess the one was the year before on Cedar.
Yep. And then we did a replacement of well 22, which is right on Cedar, just south of the Fred Meyer.
Okay.
So, but yeah, those are both operational, been successful projects and added to our system capacity. Another big project that's currently underway is our high country tank replacement. That's replacing an old bolted steel tank that was deteriorating and in need of a coating. That's being replaced with a pre-stressed concrete tank that'll be partially buried into the hillside. And that should be completed this fall. One of our projects that'll overlap into next year is well 17. So well 17 is a irrigation well that we're looking to dedicate to the Highland Golf Course. That's its current and historic place of use. And so we're going to rehabilitate that well and offload that demand off of our distribution system. And then our crews work hard throughout the year doing internal mainline replacement projects. Our goal is to target between 1.5 to 2 miles of replacement projects per year. That also includes associated service lines, valves, hydrants, etc., and the infrastructure there. So. And then we've also got our water system facility planning study. We're currently in the process of updating that study. The last study was completed in 2015. A lot of those capital improvement projects were on the tail end of that study, and we're experiencing pretty significant growth right now. And so we need to make sure that we're keeping up with those demands and with the growth that we're experiencing. And so this will give us a look at our capacity of our system, see what our deficiencies may be, and kind of look far out into the future. So overall revenues, expenditures, this year we're actually kind of in a rebuild year. Our revenues are up about $500,000 from our expenditures. That's just due to the overlaps of projects and whatnot, and finishing some of those out. So revenues, expenditure details. I'm not sure if you guys have any questions, but I can continue on with some of the explanatory factors. Yeah.
Under revenue, let's see, you have $113,000 in interest. That's interest on what?
That's interest based on our reserve balances, I believe.
All right, Rich, and is that typically the way we handle interest on reserves? They go to the corresponding department?
No, they have been actually going to the general fund.
So is this a new change for this year then?
Something we need to work toward, yes.
You think working toward that the interest would go towards the department that had the reserve?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
That's correct.
Thank you.
And wouldn't this one, the interest would have to stay there since it's an enterprise fund?
Yes.
Oh, got it.
Is that what we would see on any enterprise fund-based department? Is that interest staying as a revenue line and then falling to the department reserve?
Did we do that under those three? We're working towards that.
Working toward moving to this model
Yes.
for all the enterprise-based, okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Just real quick, we'll kind of run through some of the explanatory factors within our budget increase and decreases. So within our revenue, our rate, as Tom had mentioned before, we're just following our utility rate study, which kind of kept us at a 3% increase per year. That was our target range, and trying to identify and stay within those boundaries to do the work that we needed, as well as keep up with inflational cost that we experience. And that also projects about 0.5% for growth. Operations, maintenance expenses, they're up this year. about 350,000. A big portion of that is our on-call street repair services. We've decided that instead of purchasing additional equipment or doing and maintaining some of the patches and utility cuts that we have, that we were getting backed up into the spring months. And so we're generating a very large backlog of patches that we weren't able to catch up with until about the end of summer. And so in order to keep up with that, as well as keep up with our preventative maintenance programs, we decided to outsource that. And that's been a huge benefit. Currently, we're almost caught up with some of those wintertime maintenance cuts that we've experienced. And so that should provide better service to the citizens, getting timely repairs done. I know it can be frustrating because some of the oil and asphalt plants, they don't open until generally late April or May. And so some of those cuts we have to maintain through those periods until we can get them fully restored. So that's been an improvement.
Yeah, I think that's huge. It lets them be water guys, right? I know that Streets has tried to help in the past, but as everybody gets busy, and so this, I think it's gonna be a huge thing. There's still gonna be a little bit of a lag in the patching, because when you have this breaks, all that soil under there is super saturated, so it's gotta sit for a little while to dry out. But like Justin said, I think this is a home run for us.
Yeah, don't just start out with a cold patch on those, just temporary cold patch, and then go back
So
in the
what,
spring.
what they'll do a lot is they use recycled asphalt. So the stuff we grind up, they put that in the hole. And once compacted, it sets up like a cold patch. Yep.
Yeah, but our construction window during the summer months is so small. And so we've got limited resources of trying to maintain, all the pipe and infrastructure that we have, and with the enlargement of projects. So, yeah, it's been a definite benefit. Tools and equipment, we're looking at purchasing a utility trailer and a portable valve operator. That's to help with our pumping operations division. They currently use a plumbing van for that. Instead of maintaining that vehicle, it'd be better utilized for just equipping a utility trailer with tools, and then we're not having to deal with the additional overhead maintenance of motors. East Bench water tank, this tank's the one on Bertie Thompson above the hospital. It's in need of an exterior paint recoating. Typically those coatings last anywhere between 20 to 25 years before they need recoated. So we're starting to see the signs there. We've also built in our utility rate increase with Idaho Power, and then we're looking to also move and improve our SCADA conversion from a radio system to cellular-based system. That'll improve our communications and reliability of that system. Professional contracted services, we're down 172,000. That's due to the completion of the water rate study that should be finalizing within the first few months of 2027. So then we're also looking, one of the big things that's hitting all Idaho water systems is increased support fees from our regional offices of DEQ. They haven't increased those rates since the late 90s. And yeah, there's some significant changes that they're currently planning for on that. And so we need to plan as well. And then our water quality testing and monitoring, all of that is increasing as regulations change. There's been a lot more focus on PFAS monitoring, lead and copper emphasis, and so our testing costs are increasing rapidly. And then capital outlay, mainly just finishing out some projects with the high country tank replacement. We're also working alongside our wastewater group with the South Valley Connector and getting a carrier pipe installed for future water line crossing on that project. Then we've also budgeted for material storage buildings at our site. That'll protect some of the expensive inventory that we have. We've got gate valves and pipe that's sitting and it's subject to UV deterioration, and so we need to get that under some buildings to prolong the life of that. And then a few vehicles that we built in. So we've got a self-propelled broom that helps us on our replacement projects, our water line replacement projects, as well as leaks for cleanup. And we've got 2 1-ton or half-ton trucks and a 1-ton fuel truck we're looking to replace. Regional rate comparisons. As you can see, we're below the halfway mark on that, kind of in the bottom third of comparable cities in our region. And that's our current rate, and then our proposed fees. This is all based on median usage of a customer, of our 3/4 inch service line customer. So, any questions regarding rates?
I've got just a couple.
Okay.
On the revenue side, with our water leases and the Palisades water right, so 25, fiscal year 25, we brought in pretty significant increase over what we budgeted. 26, we budgeted 368,000. Do we know, are we thinking we're going to exceed that or be below that for 26?
It's hard to know, especially with our current state of water right now.
Yeah.
If Palisades is gonna fill to full capacity. So we're only able to lease some of that water if we have the capacity there. So we're certainly subject to drought conditions on that and the refill outlook right now, just based on our current year. We hadn't anticipated this over a year ago. We did not renew the leases this year just due to our storage allotment that we were expected. And the carryover that we'll have after this year will probably be a little short, to be honest.
So I see we've budgeted the same amount for this year. Do you feel that's reasonable?
That's a hard one.
It's a hard one.
Okay.
I wish I was a weatherman, but
Yeah, no, that's okay. I am wondering, on our, all of our water is groundwater with our wells. Do we routinely, is there a way we check like levels and kind of know where we're at capacity wise with our groundwater?
we do. So every month we do depth checks on all of our wells to ensure where we are. That's one of the things we're monitoring very close right now with the current state. Current state, we've been through drought years before. We're very comparable to some of those previous years. It's not necessarily alarming to us, but it's something we're monitoring very closely. So.
I guess, are we seeing a decrease, or, does it get to a point where we get concerned? I just wonder kind of where we are currently.
We're not in an alarming state right now. Like I said, we've been here before. I think the last one comparable year was about 2014, and then I think we had a period where we were comparable in 2008. The one thing with our aquifer, it responds very well in recharge years. It's a quick-moving aquifer. It's very fast. Many aquifers move in inches per day. Ours moves in feet per day. And so, you know, generally during a wet year, we did have a lot of you know, rain events that can help saturate the soil and sustain a little bit, but we don't have the snowpack that's going to sustain us and carry us through. And so it's hard to determine, you know, where we'll end up. If we experience another winter like we had this year, then next year could be a different story.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
How do you, or how does the city decide what triggers watering restrictions? Like how, I've got a lot of questions about that from the public.
Yeah. Again, looking at our water levels, looking at our production rates, comparing historical information year over year to see, you know, how we look. We do have some wells that are fairly shallow that we monitor and check to see, you know, is it going to be an issue? Is this well going to have to be shut down this year because it's going to be below a pump set on that? And so the city, we've got a tiered system for water conservation and calling for mandatory conservation measures. Currently, we always operate under a voluntary. That's year round. And so, you know, we continuously promote voluntary conservation to all of our users so that they understand and are using water wisely, just based on the conditions. If this prolongs further and we notice continual drops, you know, based on levels, then we might trigger. And those discussions are based on ordinance. That'll be a discussion, you know, that Tom, I, and the mayor will kind of advise from that point whether we enact some more mandatory measures.
I know the discussions we've had lately is we're not at an alarming rate right now. We're relying on you a lot to have the mandatory water restrictions. Like I'm comfortable that we're not at that level yet, but the education where we should be water-wise is there.
Right, but certainly everybody needs to understand the current state we're in and look at, you know, watering efficiently as well. We're currently working on articles within the mayor's newsletter to advise our consumers of you know, proactive tips that they can take. The city, back in 2006, we developed a water conservation measure with our tiered rate structure at that time that really helped and trimmed water use by more accountability of users, that they were, you know, targeting those to stay out of that higher tiered class. And so,
I see.
so, you know, rate adjustments are one of the primary factors when you talk with a lot of utilities. Rate design really helps water conservation too.
Yeah, and I go a little back and forth on that personally because a lot of people will stop watering their lawns and they'll use that oh, it's so expensive, I can't water my lawn.
Yeah.
So it goes beyond conservation. They just flat out don't water it.
Right.
I know folks are out there in difficult situations, but that's what worries me a little bit by using rate increases for conservation.
Right, but the one thing with grass, it's usually a pretty resilient crop.
It will come back.
And it generally comes back every year. So.
Yeah, and Councilman Nichols.
Yes. So the Palisades revenue, is that reflected in the rate study?
Yes.
So why? I mean, that would seem that Palisades income that we just happen to have, I mean, why is that being reflected in the rate study?
Because of the operating leases that we've historically had from Southwest Irrigation District, and then I believe the other ones through LSCC. I can't remember the acronym, but there's about 20,000 acre feet of water that we typically have leased and renewed those leases year to year. It is on a year to year basis, based on the quantity and volumes that we may receive. But if we lease that water, our refill rate, we're subject to losses within that. And so we've also got to maintain enough reserve for us to continue to have that and help mitigate it against any curtailment calls that we might receive from the Water Resource Board.
All right, thank you.
I had one other question, Mayor. Just going back to we're struggling to fill these operator positions. Do we use private contractors currently if those positions are unfilled? And how does that compare? Is that something we could just look at doing ongoing?
No, we typically have not done that just due to the licensure requirements that we have to maintain within our personnel. Also, we've got to understand that this is a 24/7 operation. And so we've got to be able to respond at all hours, all days of the week. And so establishing, contracts like that are very difficult based on the reliability in that. And so, when we're down personnel, some of our preventative maintenance programs suffer. I can tell you that our experience over the last year, things like our valve exercising program has suffered. And so we've come out where we're unable to get on a valve because it's filled up with sediment, debris, and things like that. And so our response time gets impacted by that, and we may have larger service outages because we've got to move to the next valve to expand that shut-off area. So
I think the on-call patching part is one that we've looked at. The water system, we don't want anybody tapping into our water system. They gotta have certain levels of certificates and training. And so what we can farm out, we try to, like the patching part, but some of that other stuff, it's kind of a risky one with the health.
Understood. Thanks.
All right.
All right, well, thank you.
Thanks. WPC, wastewater.
So moving right along, we have water pollution control. Levi Adams is here, and he will give his budget presentation with Tom.
Do you want me to scroll this or? do you want-
Sure. How fast can you scroll?
Pretty darn fast, if I can find your.
We're at the bottom.
Levi's got a side hustle
Forgotten.
going on, how quick he can go.
There we go.
There we go.
Are we betting?
Good afternoon. It is afternoon now. My name is Levi Adams. I'm the superintendent of the Water Pollution Control Department. So we scroll through here. We do have our mission statement and about our department. It's pretty self-explanatory. We want to provide the best service that we possibly can for the lowest cost that we possibly can in order to maintain a good working environment for our employees and have the ability for industry and other businesses to move into the city so the city of Pocatello can continue to grow. And if we keep going down, you can see our organizational chart. We currently have the authority for 33 full-time positions. We do have 2 open positions. One is partially open. We have a lab tech that has moved on. She's moving out of state, unfortunately. I don't know why she'd want to leave Idaho. We're trying really hard to convince her to stay, but she, for some reason, wants to live with her husband. So I guess that's what we got to do. And the other one is a position that we're reevaluating. We're trying to find some efficiencies within that position, kind of changing some of the job duties to expand it slightly. But other than that, we are fully staffed. We have a very good staff and are proud of the work that we do. Again, we have some goals in the treatment plant to discharge to the Portneuf River the highest quality effluent that we possibly can, to maintain regulatory compliance of all of our industries and all of our restaurants and all the businesses within town, and then again, be physically responsible. To take the fees that we charge the citizens of Pocatello and use those responsibly. We take that very seriously. We don't want to waste money. We want to know that everything that we collect is used responsibly. And with that, you can see that our rate comparison. We are towards the lower end. We do a very good job with what we have, and part of that does come from the rate study. We are making sure that we maintain those slow, steady increases so that we have the funds to be able to maintain what we have and to expand where we need to. We don't have to, bypass any maintenance. We don't put stuff aside. We continue to fix it as we go, and so therefore we're able to keep those costs down. So it's very important for us to continue to follow those rate studies and to keep those nice, slow, steady increases.
One thing that, if I may, that's really kind of exceptional to look at for me is our water and sewer. We live in a very challenging city for that. We live in a valley with really high benches. And, a lot of sewer is just gravity. But when you have one mountain next to another, you got to lift it up and get it to the next one. And so we have to build a lot of water tanks. We have to pump a lot of water up. And we have to also build lift stations to lift it up and get it to the treatment plant. So we live in a very challenging topographical area, and it's impressive to me that we can keep the rates what we do.
And then also, to add to that, the Port Neuf River has some environmental challenges in and of itself. So the restrictions that we have are much tighter than, let's say, an Idaho Falls that dumps into the Snake River. It's a larger body of water. They don't have the same environmental concerns in that river as the Port Neuf River does. So we are held to a very high standard. I mean, our treatment plant is as technical and as advanced as any plant in the country, just because of the standards that we have to meet as far as the nutrient removal and the water body that we are discharging into. And again, what we have accomplished this last year, we did complete a master plan for our collection systems. It's currently being reviewed by DEQ. We'll bring that for you guys in a work session, hopefully after all of the budget season's done, so we don't have to load onto your workloads any more than we are. We do our annual CIPP project and basically preventative maintenance throughout our collection system. We did a CIP project under North Main Extension. I know you guys probably saw some of that bypass pumping and some of that issues for that week. That was a very big project. That is a very large line that runs underneath there, and it was in dire need of rehab. And with that being taken care of, it makes my life a lot easier. I sleep better at night knowing that North Main Extension is not going to fall into the ground. And then, of course, replacing equipment and generators and those sorts of things. And then coming up this next year, some of the highlights we are going to replace. We use some of the treated effluent within the treatment plant itself for water uses there, so we're not using groundwater for pump still waters, wash down waters, irrigation, those types of things. We're going to rehab that water system. And then the plant lift station itself needs rehab as well. It's been in there for 30 plus years. It's time to rehab that and make that a little bit better. We do have sublet lift station. That was on the list last year. We weren't able to get to that due to engineering support, some other things that had happened. We don't have the time to do that, so we brought that forward to this year as well. And then the big one, the Indian Hills Force Main, that's currently under design right now. That is the project that's going to move the pressure line out of the levee that runs behind the golf course. It's going to go up over the South Valley Connector and down 2nd Street. That does a couple things. One, it gets the line out of the levee. So if there's any issues with that line, we're not directly, discharging into the river or onto the golf course. It also increases the capacity of that side of town, the Harrison Lift Station things. It's going to bring things up that valley, and we're moving it over to a larger line, so we're able to increase the capacity that we have on that side of town as well. And then, like I said, the bonus being able to work with the water department to do that project at once. We'll be able to put a carrier line for the sewer line on one side of the bridge and then the water line on the other side.
The Army Corps of Engineers that regulates our levee is super excited about this. That's one thing that they've been talking to us about for quite some
Yeah.
time of, because like Levi says, it could discharge into the river or the golf course, but it can also affect the structural integrity of the levee to create some flood concerns.
Wasn't part of that like a Rainy Park where we're moving the levee back, like, will that take, so that was an issue as well, I know with that, moving the levee back at Rainy Park. Does that take that portion out as well, or is that a separate project?
This is a separate project. This is upstream of that. It's basically
Okay.
from where the bridge crosses the Portneuf River, right there by, from Cheyenne all the way down to the sand trap.
Okay,
But that one was a water line that was in the way that had to
okay,
be.
that was a water
Yep,
line,
so,
okay.
yeah, you're on track with that.
Again, with our revenues and expenditures, you can see the way we, we try to do it. We're building revenue over years compared to our expenditure, and this year is going to be a large expenditure. That's that Indian Hills line that you see needing the big chunk of funds right there. And then again, I think, go ahead.
As the Indian Hills, the $8 million project there, that's coming from reserves, I assume?
A portion, yes, it is. We have the fortune of having those funds. We've done a couple different things. One, we overfunded our debt service account, so we're able to make a payment this year with what's in there, so we don't have to transfer that money over. So it'll be transferred into 074, which is our capital construction account. We're also, next year, we're going to be able to pay that debt service account from our capacity fees that we've been charging. We're able to save those up and make a debt service. So there's another 1.7. So there's $3.4 million there. And then as the reserve built, so we're going to put another 4.4 million into that 074 capital project to be able to use that. So we're using $4 million out of our cash balance in 032.
Okay, and then the difference is coming from borrowing?
No,
No.
we're paying for it all. We were able to save it all.
Okay,
So-
and then you have that 8 million, or we'll have it for fiscal
Yeah,
year
so we like to
2027
pull that
write the check.
over into a different account, so it's there. When it's a multi-year project, which this will probably be, we want to have the full amount in there for next budget years. I don't believe they're gonna get it done in a full budget year, but we'll have it there, and then the money's set aside, so we know that we're not spending that in there.
So $8 million is not gonna go out the door in FY '27. A portion of it will to
Right.
start the projects multi-year.
Yeah,
Okay.
but the money is there.
Okay.
All of it's there, so if it happens to all get done, that's fantastic. It's there, but it probably won't get all done in a year.
So kind of a good
Construction.
hypothetical way to look at it is, let's say there's $4 million every year built into the capital line, just for numbers. One year you only use 2, so that goes into the reserve. So that's kind of how that works. The full 8's already ready to go.
I'm wondering, what's the 6.7 million non-reciprocal and intergovernmental transfers?
So the non-reciprocal is where I'm paying myself, because we have to have the budgeting trail of where the money's going. So that's taking money out of 032 and putting that into 074. So that was the money for the debt service payment that would have been made to debt service. And that's also the transfer for to make that construction project go.
Perfect.
Anything else?
Should we ask more questions?
No,
so it
we're
takes
good.
you longer?
I'm ready. We're good. I'm happy to answer anything you guys want to know. We're doing good.
Thank you.
Yeah, as you get toward the end, we're not as fresh anymore, so maybe that's a good thing.
We're good.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, last but certainly not least, we have Utility Billing Department. Cindy Robbins, she's our Utility Billing Director. She's here to present.
Enjoy yourself right there.
Okay.
Okay, Mayor, City Council, welcome to your last presentation of the day. I'm Cindy Robbins, Utility Billing Director. Department organization is where I'll start. So the Utility Billing Department consists of 12 full-time employees, including the director. This department is supported by and performs the accurate reading and billing services along with revenue collection for the city-owned and operated water, sanitation, and sewer utilities. The utility department serves approximately 19,362 customers. So there are two divisions within the department. The meter reading side is structured with a meter reading supervisor and 3 senior meter readers. Their responsibilities include the timely and accurate reading of water meters, assisting customers by checking for leaks, installing electronic reading equipment, maintaining accurate meter files, and performing maintenance as needed. The customer service side is structured with 7 utility billing specialists. Their responsibilities include accurate billing of accounts, receiving payments, maintaining accounts and adjustments, assisting customers with new or terminating services, and handling delinquent accounts. Our organization chart right there, our department has stayed the same in numbers since 2015. So we have the director, then we have the 1 supervisor for the meter readers, and then 3 full-time senior meter readers, and then we have 7, which 2 of those 7 utility billing specialists, 2 of them are leads, so they're able to step in and handle a little bit more of the on vacations and things like that, take over billing cycles and stuff, because we're very date driven in our department. We don't have projects, so we have to hit those deadlines all the time. Our key accomplishments for fiscal year 25. So 4 of the utility billing specialists, each one of them handle about 4,600 customers for each billing cycle. We receipted over $37.9 million in revenue with 99.99% accuracy. $14.5 million is processed with cash and checks. 641 is brought in cash. We still deal quite heavily with cash. $12.6 million processed with bank draft and bill pay. $10.8 million processed with credit cards by staff or online. The meter readers, over 19,200 meters read and maintained each month. Approximately 2,000 work orders issued monthly by billing specialists for leak rechecks, new service turn-on, rereads, moving service disconnects. This number does not include any shutoffs or restores. The department goals for us is we truly embrace acting with integrity, honesty, and fairness as we enforce the city ordinance approved by the mayor and city council. Communication is a high priority in order for us to provide the best assistance by understanding customer needs and situations that allow us to offer help. So our revenue, you can see that one year we were up or down. Let me see, I can't see that one on here. Sorry about that. Thank you. These are actuals.
If you want me to, yep,
Revenues. Oh, our
that
revenues.
is right.
I'm not sure about that one. Most of the time, we maintain a very even budget. There was one year that we needed to buy a new pickup. It was on our time, but we also had one of our vehicles involved in an accident. So that year, we did have to spend to buy 2 pickups, and that kind of stuff does happen. So we try to prepare for that as much as we can. Our revenues and expenditures. So we are not a tax fund. We are, most of all of our money comes from the enterprise funds as they pay us. And I guess the best way to describe this, I know we have some new ones, is we're like hired from them to do their job. And so therefore we do operate on our own ordinance that we have, that you guys have written and approved for us. The other, we have about 146,000, I think. That is off our fees in our resolution fees, which are gonna be the late fees on accounts and shut-offs and things like that. So that's our main revenue source right there.
I have a quick
Question,
comment.
sure.
That, the word other there, if that could be changed to something else, because it is such a high amount, especially when there's high amounts on lines, I think having an explanatory,
So the other you're talking about there, that 1.6, that is the enterprise funds.
right, I understand that, but to a, I'm just saying to a citizen or a layperson, that's the other, that doesn't mean anything, so.
I think that's that nomenclature thing, and it's the same type of transfer. We'll
Okay,
get them
yes.
all aligned.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Basically, everything else we have is basically printing costs, our safety, things like that. We stay pretty even. There's only one cost that really we have a hard time judging, and that will be on our third-party vendors. If people have returned items, they charge us a fee, and so that one is that's a little bit hard to judge, whether that's going to be high, low, just depends on our return checks and things like that. So that's pretty much the biggest thing we have, like I said. And other than that, we're fully staffed as of Monday. We had a new person start, so. Is there any questions? All right,
Looks like we're good.
thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. All right, we made our way through the agenda. With that, we are adjourned.